Hello and welcome to the Milford Finance Committee, April 25th, 2018. First article on the agenda, item on the agenda is the approval of the April 11th, 2018 minutes. Give me a slow night. This is how it's going to be, guys. Motion by Andy, second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be bouncing around the agenda quite a bit to try to accommodate some people. So if you guys can bear with me. Doc, if you want to come up first. Dr. Fitzpatrick is here to talk about the Blackstone Valley Tech budget. I distributed their annual report to all of you. That's that fancy book that you guys got, all printed in-house by their students. Very well done. I don't know if you guys have time to take a look at it. It's very informative. It's very well done.
I did have it. What did I do with it?
With that, Doc, take it away.
Yes, once again, the chair of your committee has met with me to have a working lunch. That's been the standing practice to at least interact with the subcommittee of the Finance Committee for Milford. I've now met with 10 different finance committees across the 13-town district, which is kind of like the usual pilgrimage and request for our budgetary support. Like most of the school systems in the state, we received a rather modest increase actually, the governor's number was $20 more per student. It's fairly common. We built in a $30 more per student, and optimistically being somewhat higher than the governor's numbers. And the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago actually did come out with $30 per student. So so far we're on target with our projections. Thought it might be helpful. First of all, you have our annual report. That is the 25th annual report. In the 25 years I've served as Milford's vocational technical superintendent. And it's been an honor to do that. When your roots are in Milford, it has a special honor. I trust that you recognize the interest in coming to the school is astronomical. It is considered to be the most popular school in the state of Massachusetts, with 800 to 1,000 candidates for each 9th grade class that we serve. All the statistical numbers compiled outside of us, so they're externally driven. Placement data, completion rates, state test scores, on and on, are all very complimentary and stellar, but they've given us a high bar of expectation, and we continue to look for new strategies and suggestions. Since it's been a little bit of time since I've presented before the committee, I'd like to make a couple comments about the historical approach that we've used. Valley Tech has attempted to use, I'll call it non-traditional financing in multiple ways. That it's significantly misunderstood that the per pupil investment that's asked of our towns is roughly half of what actually is spent per student. And I say that because the state, given our high standards expectations of Chapter 74, which is the vocational technical education requirements, pretty much match dollar for dollar of the investment that's made by each town. Milford, our request of Milford is 9,000, without, well, let me give the number without debt, first of all, because debt usually separated. The FY19 request for next year, and the one before you and the citizens of Milford at some point, is $9,663 per student, 9,663. That is the 5th lowest of the 13 towns. So Milford finds itself in an enviable position, which makes it sometimes a little more difficult when I go to the towns that are not on the low per pupil. Years ago, all of the communities contributed the same amount per student. But then, of course, the court case, which looked at the ability of each member, each municipality's ability of the 351 cities and towns to pay, they arrive at a varying figure, and the state dictates that to us. Over the years, though, we've been able to do some special things in addition to projects to help Milford. Back in 2007, we were able to rebate to Milford $223,308 through the stabilization fund that we created. We had a $36 million unanimously approved by 13 towns and reimbursed at 75.5% from the Mass School Building Authority project. And we were ahead of schedule, under budget, and we were able to refinance that after 10 years, which is certainly permissible. We work closely with our treasurer, Barbara Ozier, who is the independent treasurer for the school committee, certainly the business manager, Curtis Johnson, who's a CPA and also worked for Milford some years ago. We are blessed with very capable financial people, and they allowed us to make these things become a reality. In addition, in another non-traditional approach, in FY06, I worked with the town manager to secure $73,000 for the town of Milford in what's known as a pothole grant. Today, that might mean marijuana, but it really doesn't mean that. It's really the reserve special account created by the legislature, supported by the governor, that is available on a competitive basis to apply. Valley Tech was not eligible, but Milford was, and so we worked in tandem to secure that money. Years later, in FY08, once again, worked in tandem with the town administrator to secure $176,000 for the town of Milford. These are just examples of our ability to work in unique and partnership manners that are not really considered to be within the general job description of a school superintendent. But it's been a pleasure to do that and to be able to bring back or secure dollars that would otherwise go someplace else. Last year, I wasn't asked to present, although I did have the working session with the subcommittee, as mentioned. And the reason is that the request of last year was a reduction of $89,817. Not really a tough sell, you might say.
That's why we didn't have you come in.
Yeah, I got it. So, but this year, what the state did is, Milford had an increase of 2 students, and that's not a major change in the student enrollment. Milford owns 13% of the occupancy, if you will, of the student enrollment of our structure. Fortunately, Milford only pays roughly 10%, a somewhat less number, for the mortgage, because that's a different formula. It was done back in 2008 that the formula was created for that. But in any case, when the state directed us in our total budget increase, we asked for $502 more for every one of Milford's 163 students. And when you do that, the delta is actually $100,810. So not, it's a significant change relative to the previous year, or even the previous trend. And so that's pretty much why I think Chris thought it might be good to share that. I would not want people to conclude that 2 students drove $50,000 per student for the $100,000. That's not really the way it works. I understand that's a possible conclusion that somebody could draw, but it's really not done that way. And here are other examples of the fact that that's not how the formula is calculated. If you go back to FY17, Milford had an increase at that time of 23 additional students to Blackstone Valley Tech. That was actually celebrated by the Finance Committee and several people, and we were certainly pleased to see that too. But the request with 23 more students in FY17 turned out on a dollar delta to be $180,517 more dollars, which translates to less than $8,000 per student. Specifically, it translates to $7,848 per student. You can see that the state doesn't work on this per student impact total. Multiple other factors are coming into play. And I use that as an example. The same thing is true a year ago with the reduction. Okay, there was a reduction of students, but the reduction of about $90,000. Once again, that was worth about $8,000 per student. There wasn't really a parallelization or a direct affiliation and connection between the student enrollments and what the state and what the budget build up. So our budget is, the budget was also shared in multiple copies with you.
Yep.
It's also online. We
Isn't that
hand-delivered these, okay, to give this. Once again, all this is done in publicly posted session, just like your meetings. We had roughly 10 meetings to build the budget, all posted with minutes and multiple presentations. We generally have not had a great deal of difficulty asking the 13 towns to support our budget because of the extra things we do. The smallest community in our district is Millville. And Millville this year had its town municipal center condemned because of structural deficiencies. And so they're one of Milford's partners. And they reached out to us and said, would we make an exception, because we generally don't do a large project in a given town, because you can't share, across all the family members, the 13 towns. But in that case, given their dilemma and their seriousness, it was like a tornado type situation, We went in with our vocational technical programs and worked with the town, who hired its very first town manager, and made an arrangement with the pretty much abandoned Legion Hall just up the street on the Uxbridge side, but within the confines of the town of Millville, and totally renovated that facility. And Lieutenant Governor and many others have come in there and for ribbon cutting and recognized it as a kind of a unique partnership project between a vocational technical school and one of its member towns. That's a summary version of what I
That's
wanted
great.
to share.
Thank Doc. And one of the things, first of all, Doc hasn't been in a long time, so I thought it was good that he came in. And also, I really thought that when people see this increase, it's really, because of last year going down so much, the number looks like it's a very large delta. So that's why I wanted him to come in to answer questions. So, because when people see that increase and they don't realize what it is year to year because of for what reasons, they're like, wow, this is a real big increase. So that's why I wanted him to come in, because I didn't know if there'd be any questions for anybody. So with that, I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions for Doc.
One of the, just general comment, one of the differences for us is the budget's a one-time request. It has to incorporate everything. We just don't have we might be based in the confines of the town of Upton, but we don't share any costs with Upton. Everything has to be in our budget, so it's a one-time request. It's somewhat different than a K through 12 town budget, and we respect that. I've worked in a K through 12 system, and I've now served as your vocational superintendent for 25 years. Which makes it one of the longest in the state. But so as long as my health continues and it's still rewarding, I'll continue to do that. But our request, once again, the school committee is committed to not coming back regardless of what happens with the state. We'll live with this request. Hopefully it is supported. Generally, it has been supported by the finance committees that have indicated a willingness to take action. Not all of them take action when we make presentations. So let me just share that as kind of a summary.
Yep, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions for Doc?
I do.
Yep, absolutely, Jeff.
Hey, Doc, just a quick question, just as I don't really understand, what's the criteria for acceptance? I know I've only been on the board a couple of years, and I hear, Milford should have more people, what's the deal to get more people on, accepted to the school, that's a big question. I've heard that a lot.
I said it to him a lot over lunch, too.
Well, absolutely. It's not an uncommon question, to say the least. Well, we intentionally reduced the emphasis on grades because we felt that we were becoming too focused on a grade factor. So the grades have a reduced emphasis. Much of the application process is driven by the sending middle school system. The criteria includes the behavior of the student, generally thinking that those in the employment wouldn't hire someone who wouldn't behave, behave in some mature fashion. You're looking for attendance, so obviously, again, the employer is saying, if you don't come to work, we can't keep you. Of course, if there are medical documentations, that can be excused. Then, the grades are pretty much determined by the motivation of the sending school system. That's how they can get a student to be committed and do well. We were told that students are working harder than ever. One of the reasons to get into Valley Tech or to be eligible to get into Valley Tech. The same thing is motivation to come to school. If the learning is relevant and motivational, then the attendance is usually better in schools. Then you have the recommendation of the sending school counselors. So we ask the people who know the student best to tell us who would be best served by us. So they make a recommendation. Then there's no exam. And there's then an interview by our admissions people who are non-political. Okay, the school committee doesn't get involved, the superintendent doesn't get involved. When people contact me, and people do this regularly, I will ask the admissions people who are primarily overseeing the counselors to do the interviewing, say, please be aware, Mr. Moran has made me aware of a special consideration of candidate X. Would you take another look at that person? That's the process. Keep in mind, when you have 800 to 1,000 applications, we would be the size of Brockton if we said yes to everybody. We would devastate the area school systems if we said yes to everybody. And at no point was it ever envisioned that we would be a school of that magnitude. 25 years ago, we had a declining enrollment, about 660 students. We now have 1,250 students, so we've doubled in our enrollment. I'd also like to point out, when I was asked by the previous superintendent in Milford to support the creation of a Voc Tech program within Milford, the hospitality program, I did that and offered recommendations and wrote a letter of support for the state to do that. We actually have some students who live in the district who are enrolled in Milford's program because they wanted that particular program. And it's been a bit controversial because the sending community now has like a choice tuition that they've inherited as a result of that. But I still think it was the right thing to do, so I did support that. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
But I'll go one further. I've also, to the extent that I can, I've had multiple families from Milford ask for, there are tours that are given, things like that, additional tours. I've given families a tour of the school or provided information. Some people like the reassurance that our academics are rigorous and you can go anywhere you want to go after. You don't curtail any options or potentials as you graduate. And I've done that to the best of my schedule.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, how do you determine the number of students by town? How does that work?
They have a kind of a quota, not a quota, I'm saying a goal
Yeah.
relative to what they hope to have enrolled. But it's pretty much each student competing in the entire pool across 13 towns. Okay, they haven't ever had the original agreement is 53 years old. They did not specify in that agreement a specific ratio.
Okay, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah. I can tell you that, since we know the people who created the agreement, Mr. Kellett, Paul Raftery, a variety of people that are no longer with us, but certainly stewards of Milford. It was their hope that roughly 20% of the enrollment at Valley Tech would be Milfodians. Okay, that was and that ratio was driven on the total number of K through 12 students in 13 towns. Okay, now there are 9 K through 12 districts, kindergarten through 12th grade, individual town. There are 2 town regionals, Mendon Upton and Blackstone Millville, that are in this partnership. So there are 11 school systems. Okay, the hope was that Milford's ratio of total number of students versus the entire 13 town is suggested at 20%. So that was, and now there is,
How do we do with that?
we're at 13 and we're on the increase. Okay, overall.
He knows my feeling on it. Any other questions for Doc? Yep.
Doc, I love the academic achievement. I think you've built an incredible school. But what do we do for the kids who, and I always bring up my father. Put him in organic chemistry, he fails. He's not an academician. Put a tool in his hand, he was an artist. He would never get into BVT because he couldn't rate at the top 15, 20% or 10% of the class. What are we doing for the kids, or can you do anything, who aren't academicians, but really want to be tradesmen?
Well, one of the changes that the state made, totally outside of us, your dad or anyone who came through would now have to pass a high-stakes MCAS exam, which is academic, to be granted a high school diploma. It's a far different cry than the day where I worked in 3 jobs in any summer, worked with a variety of tradespeople. If you go back multiple years, Blackstone Valley Tech, 75% of the curriculum was committed to the trade, 50% in the shop, which is pretty much 1 week, and the second week, half of the second week would be related theory of the shop. 1/4 of the total education would be academic. No high-stakes tests, though. And you could grant a high school diploma. Of course, we had a lot of mills. You had 30 machine shops, drapers, you got all kinds of other companies that were, even if you dropped out of high school, would gladly, there were employment opportunities. Whole different ballgame today. I said, we cannot grant a high school diploma unless we bring the student up. What we've discovered is many students have, roughly 40% of the students that come in have needs improvement or haven't done particularly well in the 8th grade high-stakes state test. We don't see that test results. We don't have that. But once they're with us, we can look back and see how they did with the state data. And we have mathematically been able to confirm that the students, even though they've come in at that level, have grown to have advanced or even the highest ranks with us. So our goal today would be to bring your dad up. He may not be in organic chemistry, you wouldn't have to do that necessarily. But a machinist today definitely wants to have a periodic chart in chemistry and physics and the metallurgy kind of background that is expected.
But what do we do for the kid that scores 50%? He's in the 50th percentile. He'll never get into BVT. You'd never select him.
I would beg to differ.
Really?
I'm saying that if we have a situation where a youngster, okay, has not earned perfect grades, and I got that part, but has good attendance, good behavior, strong recommendations from the sending school, all outside of us now. None of that comes from us. We inherit that, okay? And then indicates, I mean, there's a big difference when someone is interviewed by the admissions team and says, well, my mother said I had to do this, I really don't want to do it, versus somebody said, no, I want to do this, I want to be in the trade. They demonstrate a commitment, a passion. They're going to score higher in that interview process, all right? And now, are you competing with 800 others? Yeah, okay? So,
So I guess my question is, for all the right reasons, you didn't pick little Johnny. He still wants to go in the trade.
right.
Is there anything we can do, get Dr. Walsh and crew, a selectman to help, get the school committee? How do we get help for little Johnny, who's not getting into BVT but wants to be a tradesman, to become a tradesman?
Well, once again, you cannot accept 800 students, okay? So the competition is a part of life. Okay, Mike Walsh, of course, is in the automotive trade,
Right.
okay? And we
That's why I
have-
picked on him.
I understand, but I'm saying he knows full well the skill sets and the competencies necessary to be successful within the automotive trade and a variety of other aspects of that, the marketing and a number of other things. Mike Walsh is the kind of person who would serve on an advisory committee. We have 500-plus advisory committee members who tell us how our trades should proceed and what kind of changes we should make. Every student everywhere should have career education. That may not be full-fledged vocational technical education, but it's a taste of and an exposure to the trades and careers in general. The other thing you do, you have apprenticeship programs, you have after-hour programs. Whenever an obstacle is placed in front of somebody today, you got to figure out a way around it.
Can the local schools provide that doesn't compete or get?
Well, a local school in any environment is not well equipped to create Chapter 74 state-approved, intense vocational technical programs. And you've seen the school. You look at the investment that Milford has made over 53 years in equipment, sophistication of training, professional development, so many other aspects. They're not easily replicated, right? And so you can't, we have different partnerships with all kinds of different agencies, Milford Hospital, among others, and so many others. And so it wouldn't be easy for someone to replicate that. But should they create career education exposure programs? Absolutely.
So the schools can work with you or somebody to say, okay, if we can't get these kids into a BVT, I can't get them into Ivy League, but we can do programs that gets them into a college level.
Well, the state has different standards relative to the classifications of programs per se. I mean, you're not going to be able, someone who enters one of our 18 vocational technical programs, by the way, they don't really pick a program. They come in, they explore 7 different programs, and then they indicate their preferences, and we also look at their experiences across the 7 programs. But, I mean, there's a big difference between spending 3.5 years preparing for a plumbing license, which is a very sophisticated and complicated license, like electrical and many others. It's not, for the weak at heart, an individual who wouldn't make a commitment. But that's not, that level of entrenchment and contact with the sophistication of technology is certainly going to be far greater than what a traditional school will be able to provide. So I would not say that no matter who you work with, it's going to be able to anoint or to be the equivalent. But should there be some effort to provide career? Absolutely.
Okay.
And we're glad to, I've proven that I've worked with people.
Mr. Walsh, are you good?
I just wanted to respond to
Yeah.
Al's question real quick, Al, just so you know, put on my old schools that we had. The Milford schools are
It
partnered
is.
very well with Blackstone Valley.
Always are.
And Dr. Tremblay, who started the hospitality management program, which is very, very successful. And now we've launched a little bit smaller program. We've launched an automotive program where it's very different than Blackstone Valley, but the student does their academics at the high school, and their labs are done with us in Mendon and Imperial. And to your point, Al, that's a great point. The student that I have right now is just a guy that just wants to be an automotive technician, wants to work on cars, has no interest in learning physics, shows up every day on time, hard worker, good person. So we are looking at other ways to help take some of the stress off of Blackstone Valley.
And that's all I'm asking. I mean, I understand BVT has become the premium, but not everybody can get a seat in the premium. So I'm saying, okay, the middle of the road, the hard workers, not the kid that says my mother forced me to do it, or the kid that doesn't try, but the hard workers, dedicated, hey, I'll show up, I'll work hard. I get nervous that we're not giving them, Michael, you're platinum, but we can't give everybody platinum. So what can we give somebody, not quite platinum?
I can assure you, Al, that together we're working.
Okay.
We're aware of that and we're working on that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything for Doc? So with that being said, I don't know if we have a motion for our budget 350 for Blackstone Valley Tech.
The numbers have been provided to Town Hall in advance, okay?
Move.
Yep. 1,626,077 dollars. And a motion by Al, second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous?
You should put in the notes that this overage is really due, because last year, we had an under.
90,000 less
Yeah.
last year.
I mean, 90,000 is 90,000.
Yeah.
89 and change.
Yeah,
Less.
90,000. And then the other one, just the pairing to it, budget 351 for vocational tuition for 310,000.
That's not us.
That's not you?
No. We
Oh,
don't have-
that's,
That's not us.
I'm sorry, that's Norfolk Aggie.
Norfolk Aggie.
No, no, yeah, we don't, that's not
Norfolk
our
Aggie,
bill.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, That's where people go when, when they're looking for options.
Yeah, they're the expensive ones. All right, so then we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I
See,
appreciate you
Phil, I'd
coming
like to
in.
point out, when I was coming in asking for 90,000 less, they said, don't bother. But when I'm coming in to look for 100,000 more, get your butt over here.
I said it a lot nicer than that.
All right, take
Wait a
care.
minute, do you see a problem with that?
No, no, I got it. My father served on the finance committee right here, so.
I got you out before the drop of the puck. Thank you. Like I said, guys, I'm gonna jump around a bunch. I'm gonna try to grab John here.
Is that an article or?
Yes, Article 20. John is a representative for, I'm gonna butcher the name, Preparis. Oh, I had it, look at that.
Right.
Thank you. So Article 20 on the warrant regarding solar panels. We had spoken about it last time, and I missed this. I should have had John come in last meeting, and I totally missed it. But it's a zoning article. And with that being said, John.
Yes, John Fernandez, for the record, representing the Paparis family, which is the family that owns the Dairy Queen up on West Street. And they contacted me several months ago because they had begun the process of designing to try and do solar up at their facility, their business, working with a consultant, only to contact me regarding some peripheral matters. And my first question, of course, has anybody checked to see if this is allowed in the district? And of course, it was not. They are in the CC district, and the CC district was excluded from major solar projects. The way the bylaw is set up right now, anything under 25 kilowatts is considered a minor project, and it is allowed in all districts as a matter of right. The major projects, 25 and over, are allowed in certain districts, primarily the industrial districts, as a matter of right, and then in the OR district by special permit. So I approached some of the folks in town that were involved in the original design of the bylaw, because if something was excluded, one would think there was some good cause, and we needed to understand that. And really, it was just a caution at the time when they were introducing solar. and they left out the CC district because some of the lots in that district are smaller, they're compact, some of them abut residential zones, and they really weren't sure when they were passing the bylaw just how extensive, how expensive, what would the solar bring to the town of Milford for appearance, aesthetics, project development, and the like. We've matured past that and seen that solar works very well in the community, has a benefit to the business people, to the grid generally. And so approaching the planning board on this matter, they were favorable to the idea of moving forward in the CC district. And we actually proposed that it be by special permit, again, recognizing that while the vast majority of that zone, if you were to drive to it, really is significant businesses. If you were to start up on the Upton line and drive down 140, where it's primarily located, you'll see, very, very many businesses, Francis Flowers, the Hill Plaza, Dairy Queen, the doctor's offices, all the way up to Gary and Hellman, Harry O's buildings, and the rest. Very, very, the automotive shop up there. So you'd see that it really is mostly commercial, but by special permit in those instances where there may be some reason to confine to less than what might be otherwise allowed under the dimensional requirements, they have the right to kind of look at the project and say, we want to do a little bit less here, or we want you to do more in terms of protecting the neighbors. So that's why the proposal has been made to allow it in the CC district and allow it by special permit.
And the planning board still has control over it.
Planning
on a
board is going to
case-
have the
case-by-case
special
basis.
permit control along with the site plan control, and we appeared before them a week or two ago, and they were unanimous in their support for this bylaw moving forward.
Anybody, any questions for John?
What's proposed, John? Canopy? Or
Yeah,
what-
what's
what's-
it gonna
Oh, for them, and we haven't got that far, because, we don't typically, when we're doing a zoning change, even though the motivation comes from a single individual, we don't usually talk about the project in particular, simply because you don't want the tail wagging the dog of zoning. You want to know that it's not one project that will work well, but how otherwise in the zone it might be problematic. But in this particular instance, the programs today, the solar SREC programs and smart programs, are really designed to encourage carport solar. So they won't have it on the top of their building. It won't be a field, which is allowed. But what they'll do is look at their rows of parking, and they absolutely are not going to plan to do all of their parking. They're not going to do anything next to the building, because they have parking right up against the building, because they're very protective of the Dairy Queen appearance and the like. So they'll pick a couple of locations on the site where they have parking carported, much like you see at the Dunkin' Donuts
And Route
down
16.
on Route 16. That's the kind of project they're talking about. And by the way, for them, they're looking in the 100-plus kilowatt, and that's a significant six-figure investment. So this isn't, by the way, the kind of thing where you'll see every small business just popping up and saying, hey, we're gonna be doing this, and it'll come up through the district. These projects are significant six-figure projects to invest in, and their returns are 10, 15 years in terms of that investment. But, they use a lot of energy in that business, as you might imagine, and so this is an opportunity for them to both protect the grid and save themselves some money. So that's why they would be moving in that direction.
Any other questions for John, guys?
I have one.
Yep, absolutely, Vin.
Thank you. It doesn't sound like it's gonna be intrusive in any way, but are the neighbors okay with this, or?
Well, the proposal going before town meeting does not involve us. In other words, the approval by town meeting will only allow preparers to move forward with a design project that would incorporate thinking about how this impacts the neighbors. But they haven't moved that far, because even the design of these things are significant dollar investments. So unless we get permission to change the zoning, there's no sense in moving forward with a particular design. So evidently, yes, the neighbors will be involved in any project on the site. That's the reason we put in the protection of saying, as opposed to the industrial districts where it's a matter of right, this is more like the OR hospital zone, where because the hospital is so close to neighbors, that it has to be by special permit. So if a design was going to be done in that zone, you'd have to go to the planning board with your plans. It's advertised, it's a public hearing, the neighbors get notice, everybody gets to participate in that decision
We
making.
just haven't gotten to that point.
We will not be at that point. We have to allow it in the district first, and if that happens, then the preparedness committee will invest in the design as it works for their site there, and move forward very quickly to the planning board with a petition.
Okay, thank you.
Motion favorable? Seconded by Mike. All those in favor for favorable recommendation on Article 20? Thanks for coming in, John.
Thanks. I just
Appreciate it.
want to say parenthetically that it was interesting listening to Dr. Fitzpatrick talk about the schools. I was on the school committee back 25 years ago that hired Doc, and at that time, he was a young, flashy, well-known statewide expert in education, and my question to him when we began the fight to get him hired was, will you make a commitment to the school system for at least another 8 years or 6 years? And when we had a vacancy in the Milford school system, I called him during that time to see if he might be interested. He says, the chairman of the committee at that time asked me if I would make a commitment to this school system. He's still there 25 years later, done a great
You're
job.
lucky to have him.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it. Once again, like I said, I was jumping around. Chief, do you want to come up and try to get you out of here, too?
And thank you for the courtesy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chief. All right, next item is the budget for the fire department, which is budget 522. How are you, Chief?
Thank you. Have a good, how are you tonight?
Very good, thanks. Do you want to start? Do you want my subcommittee? What do you want to do? It's up to you.
Nope, doesn't matter to me. I met with, I applied to the Board of Selectmen, and the town administrator and the finance director when they developed their new plan for increasing employees. I applied for 5. Through various meetings and talks, we narrowed that down to a plan where we're financially, if the town can afford it and everything stays good, we're gonna move forward and attempt to hire 1 additional employee each year for the next 5 years. This upcoming being the first year.
Chief, your budget proposed without the extra staff member was considerably lower than our,
Yeah, it was only a $15,000 increase because I've had 4 retirees this past year, which left, a lot of seniority left and a lot of new entry-level employees came in. So I realized the savings of $83,000. So after contractual obligations, we're still only looking at an increase in the budget. If we hired no employees of $15,000.
yeah, we had significant savings from those 4 employees. That $83,000 was significant savings. And the chief had put together, and it should be up on the drive for everyone, staffing levels for the town. I don't know if you want to go over that quick.
The historical staffing
Historical,
levels?
yeah, because I think
Yeah.
that is your best argument
Yeah.
point.
I mean, as far back as I can remember, Chief DiPaolo, Chief Taddy, my brother, and now myself, have always advocated for increase in staffing. So I went back into the old town reports, and I just, for the fun of it, started the year I was born in 1957 as a reference point. But as you can tell, I got started recording year to year in the early 80s. There's a few years that are missing there. That was the Prop 2.5 years, and Chief DiPaolo must have been angry because he didn't, there's no good statistics I could get my hands on. But as you can see, as the population has grown through the years, the call volume has grown through the years, the fire department's pretty much held basically the same level of staffing through those years. It's getting to the point where we're getting close to where we're gonna break the camel's back, and we can only handle so much of a workload. We're handling a lot of multiple calls now, where we're at sometimes sending out a single person on a truck just because we don't have anybody else available. So that's why I asked for 5, but realizing that was over a $300,000 hit if we hired 5, so we decided to do it in an incremental 5-year plan, roughly $60,000 a year. This first year is a little bit more because we're hiring an additional inspector. I'm promoting one of my firefighters up and hiring an entry-level person because the inspectors, I have the deputy chief and I have the training officer helping the inspector, just with the workload we have and with all these potential 40Bs coming along, and the additional housing that's being built in town, we're just gonna be overloaded.
One of the things that when you proposed it that I saw, when in 2002, there were 40 officers, and there was 3,481 calls of service. And last year, there are 40 officers, and there are 5,369. So you're talking about a 60% increase in calls
Right.
with the same amount of firefighters.
And it's not going down.
And that's why, to me, when you had proposed how many firefighters, I was like, wait a minute. And then I looked at these numbers, and I'm like, how do you deal with a 60% increase in calls with the same amount of staff? And
Make it happen.
and that's immediately when I caught my eye, and that's, you won me over for a new fireman when I saw that. So, with that being said, I'd like to go to the subcommittee, who met with you guys to discuss what they had
Yeah, we
come
met,
up with.
Aldo and I met with the chief on Monday, and we discussed the one additional officer, and we were waiting to see what the selectmen suggested. I understand that the selectmen agreed, so we agreed on the one addition. His budget is either level funded or less than that, so we have no problems, and so we agree as to the new addition to the department.
Okay, great. Al?
Chief, I'm confused, and maybe it's just Portuguese math that doesn't add up, but 60 grand, that means you're paying people $30,000 to be a firefighter?
No, that's the starting salary for an entry-level firefighter.
So they don't get health benefits and they don't get
That's 60
unemployment?
grand out of my budget.
Okay. 'Cause I
That's
was gonna
another,
say-
it's another 19 grand out of Zach's budget.
So we're talking 5 people, it's like closer to $400,000 incremental over 5
Yes.
years. Okay, I just want to make sure, because,
Yeah, no, to your point, though, we're only talking about one firefighter here. Even that meeting at the selectmen's meeting, I said to the chief, I said, we'll talk about next year.
Right.
but what good, I always thought firefighters come in threes like policemen, that if you're going to add a net one person,
Fours.
force.
I have 4 work groups, so if we're not hiring in volume, then I'm gonna add 1 to each group over the next 4
So
years.
this is a commitment for 4 people.
I hope so. But it all
It's not
depends.
one.
It all depends on if
I will
the-
commit next year when I see the numbers. I'm not committing to other firefighters
But I'm just
until I
saying,
see next
if
year's
you
numbers.
hire one firefighter, you can increase the one shift, but then the
Correct.
3 shifts,
Correct.
right? I just want to make sure,
But
because
it's
to me,
it's a step in the right direction. It's better than what I had yesterday.
okay, to me, this is $400,000 we're adding, not 80,
No, it's
Over the next
80,000.
5 years.
4 years, right? 4 people
Well, 1 this year and for the next 4 years.
after that.
We're hiring 5 people total.
He wants to hire 5 people.
Wants to hire 5 people. total.
But you only have 4 shifts. Where's the 5th guy go?
The
Or
inspector.
woman? Oh, okay.
Move favorable.
I'm sorry. Jeff, did you have a question before I did? Yeah.
Hi. Has the mix of calls changed over the years to medical, fire calls,
Yeah. Back in the day when you were on, we were doing a lot of dumpster fires, car fires, a lot more structure fires. Now it's swayed the other way, where we're doing predominantly 2/3 to 3/4 of medical calls.
Is that to support the ambulance, or does the ambulance absorb some of the calls, chief, or do you guys really go on them all?
We all run together.
You all go
We run
together.
Yeah. And you'll find that most towns do. Even a town like Franklin, that runs their own fire department ambulance, they'll run an ambulance with 2 guys and an engine company with them. Just many hands make for light work.
Thank you.
I want to, Chairman Walsh, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, to the chief's point, you can't look at just the increase of calls. The chief is dealing with a serious opioid problem. He's dealing with it on a daily basis, and he's responding to all of those calls. But he makes a valid point. We're looking at 3 40B projects right now. We're looking at the renovation of the middle school east across the street. We're looking at the new development of the industrial park off of Route 85. So he's gonna have, his department is gonna have a big demand on him. And it he did come in the other night, and his original proposal was for 5 firefighters. We asked him, Chief, do us a favor, we can't do that. We can't do that. Mr. Chairman, you were there, and I thank you for your input. He said, let's work together. So we said, we'll add 1 this year, if we can get it approved. And to the chairperson's recommendation, he said, I'll look at next year when next year comes. But I think that this is something that seriously needs to be looked at. The fire department is under a lot of stress. As you know, there's an article for us to go to town meeting to put together a security system, a security task force for the schools, the library, any public building in town. In fairness to the chief, I think we need to support the chief and put this article through.
Al?
And Michael, this is great. What I'm getting nervous about is I'm hearing lots of $500,000, $400,000 additions. We've been very fortunate over the last few years that we've had surpluses. Well, even a $2 million surplus, when you start chipping away 400,000, I know it's in 4 years or 5 years, but you start chipping away 400 here, 500 there, pretty soon, there's no surplus left. So I want to make sure we understand. You know, I mean, if we're going to do 1 firefighter, it's 1 shift.
Correct.
You know, this is $400,000, and as long as we all go into it with our eyes open, then we won't get surprised. But too many of these little $400,000 or $500,000 projects, and I get nervous about our budget.
Absolutely. Yep, Mike?
Real quick, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right number. We're proposing a $4,224,000
$104.
moving forward, so the 2.2%.
I think it comes to 2.2. Is it?
Just want to make sure I'm looking
Yep,
at the.
2.2%. Yep, Mike?
The quick response effort by police regarding schools and library and everything, I don't recall reading anything about what impact that would have on the fire department.
We've trained several times with the police department. We're basically acting a support role. We're actually looking at waiting on some federal funding for the fire district we belong to purchase in bulk tactical gear for firefighters to use in the event that we had to go in and support a police effort in a school. They'll make the initial entry and engage their person in the hot zone, which creates a warm zone behind them. Then additional police officers would bring us in, and we just go in, grab who we can grab, and get them out as fast as we can to a safer area. Hope it never happens, but, you know, you'd have a lot of mutual aid involved in there, because there's a potential for a lot of bodies to be required to pull that off.
Nothing in your budget at this point?
Nothing, no.
Phil?
Yeah, Chris, you had some data that went back a few years in terms of number of calls and
Yes.
and manning. Could you just go over that again?
It should be up on the drive, but I'll refresh it.
Yeah, thanks.
The example that I used was in 2002. There were 40 firefighters, which is the current staffing. And the number of calls was 3,481 calls for that year.
And that was 42, okay, yeah.
And in 2017, there was 5,369 calls with the same staffing of firefighters, 40.
Okay.
You want to see it on paper?
No, it's okay.
All right.
No,
That's okay.
Chief, just a quick
That's
question,
fine, that's
for
good.
once we go to manning, once you add more manning, will that help offset any overtime costs for covering shifts?
Yeah,
As long as you don't increase the minimum staffing, that's contractual. I mean, obviously, I'd be an advocate to increase staffing, because right now, you have 6 firefighters on duty in this town of 30,000.
Right.
Your new truck that's due in next week, it's a 109-foot aerial ladder with a 2,000 GPM pump. So, I mean, one man can't operate that truck. You can operate one aspect of it or the other, but not both
You're not
at
using
the
it.
same time. So, you know, would like to put a second, that's where you originally wanted to put the second person, is staff that.
Understood.
2's better than 1.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, so do I have a motion to accept budget 5220 for $4,224,104? Motion by Mike, second by Vin. All those in favor? Thanks so much for coming in, Chief. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
You too.
See you, Bill.
All right, Andy, you want to come up? All right, so, 155, IT Department. What do you got, Andy?
Now my budget. And then,
Did anyone look at, I didn't know if you want to say a few words.
What is it?
Department 155, it's on the drive under
That's
submitted
it.
budgets.
the town section of
One town section.
I got it.
IT.
Yep. So, $559,663, and the reason we had to come in was an 8.8% increase. Do you just want to talk about what the increase was, or?
Well, we, the increase is mostly for our licenses and renewals, which, within IT, and our department has been maturing our licenses, and what we are going, and what we're purchasing is going up, such as our website, our firewalls, our antivirus, and our email filter system. It's just added on to prior years and stuff.
And you also had contractual obligations for
Absolutely,
people, for employees, that was a bump there as well.
absolutely, and everything.
Does anyone have any questions for Andy?
I just have one general question. How many employees do you have?
I have one other employee besides
One
myself.
other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we get all the data from the school side of the 155?
I wish I had that information, but unfortunately, I can't speak for what the school does.
You should have it.
Yeah.
Then I'm
Zach
confused.
may be able to speak better than I can for anything on the school side.
See 4 line items there,
Yep.
under 155, and the 5110-3 and the 5300-3, those are the school's portion of that 155 budget.
It's actually level funded.
Yep, they're level
Okay.
funded.
So no new hire in that grouping?
Not for the town side, absolutely
No,
not.
the
Not
school-
right
Not
now.
the school side either.
Again, Andy, with all due respect, the town, the school, 155 is a budget.
Yes.
That's why I just talked about it
I
generically,
understand.
so I didn't
Yeah.
want to break it in and talk about
So I
school
just
versus
don't, I don't
that.
want to get confused and hear that, okay, no, the town didn't, but the school did, and the dog and the cat, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
everything goes crazy.
Well, yeah, 155 is like a one lump sum for both town and the schools, and, you know.
So
I
now
think
you had
could be
talked
like-
about 8% increase, but that was mainly updated licenses
And renewals,
and, well, and renewing what we already had.
absolutely.
So
that,
there's
you know,
no new initiatives
And
or,
then salary obligations.
And salary.
Also, this year, it's important to note that library's coming on board with us this year, so we did, we are
Absolutely.
asking for a $10,000 appropriation to replace their server that's outdated now, it needs to be done. That's what we pulled off the capital.
but I was gonna
Yeah.
say, Zach, with all due respect, that one we have in capital. So if taking it off of capital and moving it into 155 is always what we said we should do.
Yep.
You should control the IT purchases. So that doesn't bother me. If it-
Absolutely, the library, that specific fund there is only gonna be for library purchases, and that would be it.
Yeah, but Andy, what I'm saying is, we had budgeted that amount for the new server. So it's expected in the overall spend. Moving it to your department, I think is the best idea, because then we know the
Where it's
IT.
where it's coming from.
Well, we also know you're
IT.
controlling the purchase.
Absolutely.
You know, you're buying the right thing, so I'm comfortable with that.
I was too, but it was a large number, so I wanted him to come in just if there were any questions. Yep, Vin?
Just one other question of my own curiosity. Do we gather any revenue at all from either recycling or sale of older equipment?
We don't get any sort of, anything. We
Just trash 'em?
recycle it. I just put it outside for either Carlos, Paul, or Bert to take back to the transfer station.
From what I understand, there is some value in the old equipment. I just don't know if there was any possibility of looking into, maybe generating as, even if it's only a few hundred or whatever.
Anything that's, that we can reuse, we actually do reuse. So if someone needs, say like a part-time person needs a computer or something, we would actually repurpose whatever we have
Okay.
and give it to them. But as far as actually selling it to the general public or anywhere else, there's nothing.
I was
on
thinking
the
more
books
like
right now.
recycling, where there is value in recycling.
Yes, yes, in that aspect, yes, we do recycle and transfer to whoever we need right now.
Andy, there's been a lot of chatter about the town website and people posting minutes and posting agendas, and I will say, I was telling Chris tonight that I got the agenda for the finance committee, I got the agenda for the planning board. Is there a plan to expand that, you know, and I'm assuming it goes through you, right, through all the, you know, all the board meetings and all the minutes?
Absolutely, everything goes to the IT department for that. We'll put up, as soon as we get them, we put them up. We just have to rely upon the boards and all the other committees to actually get them to us in a timely manner. And then we'll put them up.
So there's no requirement you have to give them, they just need to give you a document or something to put it up?
Absolutely. Just give us your agenda, give us your minutes, do whatever. A lot of times it filters down from the selectman's office, and then Liz would send it down to us, for the most part.
Okay, one quick, Paul, when I send you things to put, like the articles, all the information, the background, and I've been sending it to you and then pinging Zach to make sure, because one, we want on the FinCom access, but two, town meeting members and residents, it's their money, should have access to it. Should it be going to Andy and not Zach, or is it okay for you and Zach?
You wanna cut out the middleman, you will.
Well, no, Zach, that's why I'm asking, because what I'm hearing is he's doing the work.
Yeah.
So I'm sending it to you and essentially asking you to send it to him. Would you send him that directly then?
As far as I'm concerned, as long as it's approved by whoever needs to approve it, send it to me and send it to myself and Dan, we'll put it up for you.
No, we just, you know, one of the things that Jeff's alluding to is in the past, town meeting members at the last minute got all the information. And it wasn't fair, because they're trying to digest what we do in a month in a few days. So now what we've been doing with the good Dr. Abbo is, as things are approved, all the background information I send right away. So the town meeting members, or residents, I mean, it's their money, they can look at it and say, I have questions. So great, now we know.
I mean, I can just attest it, we have a pretty good response rate and posting rate. As soon as we get it, we post it. So it's.
No, I just don't want to cost twice the work, because I'm sending it to Zach. I didn't know it was the royal Zach, so now I'll cut him out and send it directly to
If it's
you.
approved, send it to me.
All right, Andy, does anybody else have any questions for Andy? With that, do I have a motion for Department 155, acceptance of their budget at $559,663?
Make a motion.
Motion by Jeff, second by Vin. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it,
much,
buddy.
guys.
Thanks,
Talk
Andy.
to you later.
All right, Zach, you want to bang some out here?
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, you wanna do Chris first?
Yes, absolutely, Chris.
Oh, shit.
It's not funny.
We don't do a budget for Toronto.
Not good.
You want to do your budget? You want to do your articles? What do you want to do?
I think my articles were already approved.
Oh, do you already do them? Oh, perfect. Yep.
Reoccurring.
Yep, you're exactly right. All right, so where are you? 145. All right, budget 145, the town treasurer. All right, so I guess the big thing there is general expenses went up quite a bit. And obviously you have contractual obligations too, so.
Yep, so, the salaries are contractual obligations between, myself and my two employees. When going into general expenses, pretty much every line item is level funded except for the consultant, line item. And if you recall back, 2016, I came in front, of the board and, asked for, I believe, $9,000 for an OPEB audit. The state requires us to do that every 2 years, so it's coming up in FY19. So I have $12,000 there. The other, about $2,500 of that, we have to file a continuing disclosure agreement every March. What that goes through is it goes to all our banks, it goes to all the people who hold our debt. And that filing fee this year was $2,000. I was able to cover it in my budget for FY18, but I just needed to put it in for 19 because I don't want to be
So let's be
short.
honest, Chris, all you got here is your OPEB audit.
that's pretty much it.
Chris, you just added that, right, the 2,000?
The 2,000 I just added before I met with Phil.
Okay.
It wasn't in there, I apologize.
But on the whole, we got it's just an OPEB on it. That's what, that's required.
Yeah, so next year, that will only go up by it would only be 2,000 or 2,500 next year.
Yep.
And then, every other year, it's gonna be,
And we'll back that 9 out, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
Anybody else have questions for Chris? All right, that is, what do we say, 145? So does anyone have a motion to accept budget 145 at $213,849? Motion by Vin, second by Phil. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, Chris.
By the way, the subcommittee did meet and did vote favorable.
All right, great.
Just so you know that.
Thank you. Start banging them off.
Go. Next one that's up is gonna be Assessors 141. She's been in a couple times. Shouldn't be any surprise what that request is. It's the highest on here tonight, but he was very excited about that budget. The big thing to note there really has to do with the reval process, where it expanded from 3 to 5 years. If you recall, she had a surplus identified of 85,000, of which she used a little bit, and at the same time, we're using that as a funding source for Tom's article, which she'll explain a little bit later. She's kind of giving that up now, because she did not need to use it until next year. Next year, she needs to use it, so that's kind of where the increase is coming from. 2.4% all for personal services, all contractual obligations, so. Other than this reval request, that's really what we're talking for overall 3.2.
Anybody have any questions about the assessor's budget? Vin?
Is the reevaluation process over, or when does it end?
It'll start next year.
Starts, I thought we just ended one.
It's every 5 years, and no, we didn't just end one.
Well, someone visited my house last year.
I'm not sure what that was. They randomly do throughout every year as well.
They don't do them all in 1 year.
Yeah.
They have to have them all completed within a period of time.
Well, no, that's why I asked, is it completed? But apparently, I don't know whether it's part of the old one or part of the new one.
I believe it's the old one, because this whole change is starting this coming year, where it's gonna change to a 5-year process.
And the excess in funds that you mentioned, where did that come from?
The exact same situation. They thought they would have had to start that this year, which they didn't, because the state came down, allowed it to happen next year, so they're not spending the 85,000 they needed.
So that was part of their budget from the previous year. then.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on budget 141?
Make a motion.
Motion to accept budget 141 at $397,555. Second by Phil, I think, or Jack?
Yeah, man.
Phil? All those in favor? Unanimous. Tax collector 146.
Tax collector, just like the fire chief, we had a meeting Monday, we were present. The issue there was, we're in a situation where Terry, tax collector, is requesting a part-time staff, 19 hours per week. The selectmen agreed to 6 months, and this was a temporary position that was responsive of the situation we have. And they approved 6 months, so we cut it down in half. We're gonna be looking to try to come up with a better solution, so therefore we'll be back with a report within 6 months, basically.
They were having coverage issues at the window because of just some issues in the office. They weren't able to cover the window a proper amount of time. And the point was that this was the face of town hall. This is the most used window probably in the entire town hall. And they weren't having the coverage in the hours that they needed. I know Terry was saying she wasn't leaving for lunch. She had to stay there and cover and all that kind of stuff, so, yeah.
I'm confused. We're gonna put somebody in for 6 months because we can't manage the volume.
There's health issues going on within the department, just so you know. And because of that,
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out on day 181,
we're hoping in 6 months the health issues are resolved.
This is
and-
a
And this-
temporary fill.
Temporary. I don't wanna
And-
get into too much detail.
No, no,
Exactly. That's why I didn't want to say anything either.
you said, and I just want to make sure, too many times when we do temporary,
I get it.
then all of a sudden it's like, well, of course we need that extra
We got
person.
3 years later. and it's-
So you're saying we're plugging somebody in because we're below where we will be hopefully in 6 months?
Yes.
Okay, that makes me feel better, because then I really do believe it's temporary.
Vin?
I have a question. Is there a plan to address the issue, if it's a health issue of the individual involved, or he still not healthy after 6 months? We're gonna hire someone else again?
Again, we're going to look into solutions to deal with that office. So we will look to cross-training people, we will look to maybe reorganizing the 3 people that are there so they cover maybe uniforms or alternate hours. So those are the type of solutions we will look into.
And it was a talk not even just for that office, but town hall as a whole, is maybe we had a permanent sub that would move around in a lot of offices and cover that type of stuff. So that that whenever someone's out, that there would be a sub there. So there's a lot of things that we're talking about we're talking about, the selectmen are talking about.
That's not this.
No, that's not this, but that's to, maybe in 6 months be in place of, that there would be a permanent, almost like a permanent sub that any office that day that needed a person. But once again, it's
One
very
other dumb
tentative.
question. In the past, we've hired temporary people that when we wanted to untemporary them, municipal whatever law said, you can't.
This is no union or
Yep.
non-union.
Literally, it's, you're paying them $1 a day or whatever, it's 6 months, you're paying them $6, we're done. There's no tail.
Yeah, like a sub.
Okay, I just want to make
The
sure.
sub-rate. It's
Yeah,
not-
separate,
Exactly.
yep.
I just remember before, when we
Yeah.
thought that was what we hired, we were
Yeah.
told later, oh no, now that they're been here for 9 months or whatever, you gotta give them unemployment, you gotta give them all, the tail.
Yeah.
Okay.
very good
So-
question.
Sorry to nitpick, I just.
No, it was a good question. That came up quite a bit at the meeting. Tom, can you do me a favor? I'm not sure if I have the correct number after we went to the 6-month thing. Can you give me what 146 is at the 6-month rate?
Yep, I did adjust it down and,
I have 236,521. Is
no,
that?
it's 201,
Thank you.
185,
Oh, yeah, you're looking at both. You want the total, Chris?
I want total.
Yep.
227, 713 is the total.
227,713.
713 is the total.
All right, does anyone have any other questions about the tax collector's budget?
No.
Great. So do I, sorry.
The updated Article 4 is in the submitted budgets, so you might be looking at.
Oh, I'm looking at a printout, yeah.
Okay, that might have been.
Yeah, that's why I knew it was perfect, great.
The updated one is on soft copy.
Perfect. So do I have a motion to accept budget 146 at $227,713? Motion by Al, second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous. Personnel Board, 152.
Mr. Chairman, were you gonna, I know at the start of the.
You do whatever you want.
You were going, you had Article 2 on there. I don't know, can we skip over that one until you? get to
Oh,
that?
yeah, that's fine.
So why don't we go to human resources? Rick actually wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, very briefly, as you know, the selectmen have placed a high emphasis on HR director. So much so that we have prepared a job description. That job description was reviewed.
153, thank you.
Yeah, that job description was reviewed by the selectmen and approved. It was then reviewed by the personnel board. The position was set at, I believe, level 2. The range is 60,000 to roughly 86,000. When we, at the roundtable, I think Chris, you were there, obviously, we discussed this. If you look at the job description, the qualifications are a 7-year plus experience, certain degrees, et cetera. So we would like to budget this at the top step. It's not to say the person's coming in to get that top step, but we would like to have the ample room to negotiate if need be with the individual that comes in to take this position. We're looking to start this position, obviously, as you know, fiscal year 19, July 1st, if possible. So the budget request there is roughly 86,000, plus I think we correct me if I'm wrong, $5,000 for just an expense budget. So you're looking roughly at $91,000.
Plus
Supplies.
benefits, plus.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Say full-time, absolutely, $35 position, plus meetings and what have you.
So
Yes.
it's 100 and
Absolutely, so
some.
add the 18, 19,000.
I just
Yep.
want to make sure we're, we know what it's really going to cost us.
Yes,
It's
you're
not a
absolutely
part-time
right.
position. But
Absolutely.
again, I think it's important to have the latitude to budget this not at the step 1, for example,
Yep.
but at the step 8, and so I think that makes a lot of sense. The board of selectmen thought that
Well, I would
was
hope you
awesome.
wouldn't hire somebody at step 1 with
We
no
wanna make sure-
experience.
No, absolutely.
It's not gonna allow that.
But, no, there's no question, but
It's not gonna allow that.
budgeting this gives the flexibility to be able to hire at that level. Obviously, if there is lesser, which obviously no one's hoping for, because we want an experienced candidate, so I would assume it's probably gonna be the 85,560. But if it's lower, it's lower.
Yeah. But
If
again,
it's lower,
have
it will
as you said,
return.
It'll return to the town,
we'll
drop
have
to the bottom.
flexibility to get the right person.
So the total budget, I just want everyone to know, for 153 is $90,560. Questions, Jeff?
Rick, we heard an impassioned plea from the Personnel Board last week that they did a study of all these towns around us. Does HR Director happen to be in this study? Do we know any other towns that have this position, so we know what the base is? I mean, I'm in favor of what you're proposing, but
Yeah, I don't know if that was in their study, I'm guessing it was not. Number one, again, they have their rating system that they use. I think one of why this was rated where it was is right now that person really isn't going to be supervising anyone underneath them. I envision, hopefully I'm correct, that position will grow as will the number of employees in that position. And I think at that time, it may be a time to look to re-rate that position. I don't want to jump into that now, obviously.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is, I agree with you, 100% what you're saying.
Thank you.
Because right now, it's a department with a head count of 1.
Correct.
So,
Would that person then help us understand how to be competitive, stay competitive,
Absolutely.
and not every other year you have to change things?
That person would be involved in everything from job descriptions. to-
And working with the personnel board.
And working in conjunction with the personnel board, absolutely. Absolutely.
in fact, one of the articles that we passed was that the HR director would be a member on
That's
the.
one of the articles for consideration
Yes.
in May.
Yep,
Yeah, but I was hoping this person's gonna be a leader, not just a member.
we're hoping for that.
Michael.
Sorry, Mike.
Where is this HR person gonna be?
Great question, Rick. I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. We have a couple of options that we're looking at. One of them that I'm starting to lean towards more is, believe it or not, Upper Town Hall in the back. Either that, we're gonna have to lose a conference room, or we're gonna have to lose room in somebody's office. So right now, everything's on the table. Haven't really finished that.
Rick's problem, guys, Rick's problem.
Bunk offices.
I don't know if that'd be conducive for an HR person, but it's a great question, and believe me, Zach and I have been kicking it
It's a
around
challenge.
Yeah.
for several months.
Vin?
Yeah, just one general question. I'm assuming now this is gonna be a line item in the general government budget?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions regarding budget 153?
I don't have a question, I just have a general comment. I think this article, or this budget, in general is a good idea. I think an HR director is needed. I'm just concerned about the timing in a year that our overall budget is kind of higher than it typically is in a general year. Looks like the bottom total, we're at 4.6% for our overall. So I want it in context of the entire budget.
Absolutely.
I'm just a little concerned about how many people, whether it be the police, fire, town hall, school, we are
It is.
proposing a lot of hires this year. and
Things are
it's
getting tight.
Really concerning.
There's a lot going on.
This year there's a lot going on. Absolutely, great point, Mike. Jeff?
I totally agree with Mike's point, but I think we're at the point that we need the expertise for setting the salaries, setting the descriptions.
Absolutely.
Getting the qualified. I think we're at that point now in a budget this big.
I couldn't agree more, really.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, Mike, you make a valid point, you really do, but to the chairman's point, to Jeff's point, there's a lot that's gonna be going on in this community. There's a lot of developing that's gonna be going on in this community, if it's all authorized, approved by the town. When you look at the Human Resources Director, it's a very important position. Whether you wanna look at it or not, this town is a $100 million a year corporation. And we talked about it one night at a meeting, and that simple things like training, sexual harassment training, people think of sexual harassment as one phase. Sexual harassment is many phases, many. And so, just to protect the town with that person is, we're to the point now where you can't have an employee going into the town administrator and saying, geez, I've been here 2.5 years, and how many days off do I get? That person just can't, and that's only one facet of it, but with all the development that's coming down and all the other regulations that are coming down, and things that this community's gonna be involved in, and I'm with you. I'm the last guy that wants to hire, but I think we need to get ourselves staffed properly for what's coming down the pike. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Michael, I agree with you. I think we're past the point. We're a $100 million company. For years, we keep hearing, we got to do this to be competitive because we're not competitive, but we are competitive. A year later, now we have to be more competitive to be less competitive. It's just, an approach that you see when you're not dealing with somebody who's focused on the best practices. And you bring up sexual harassment, there's no cost to that. That is something we need to do to protect all of our employees. There's many things. And I think we're way past it. As much as I don't want to add another $100,000 bite of our surplus, I don't know that we have a choice.
We're ready. Anybody else? All right, accept budget 153 in the amount of
$90,560.
$90,560. Knew we brought you for a reason, Tom.
Very harsh.
You ask an accountant a number?
Motion by Vin.
I'll second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor? Unanimous. What do we got? IT.
We should have hit tax title.
Tax title 158.
Yeah,
158.
Maybe Phil might
I'll
want
just do
to.
it from here. So, again, Mr. Chairman, I met with my subcommittee, met with Phil. We went over this, 25,000. Basically, that was the 15,000 I've had for the last couple of years, plus the 10 that I came back to you last October.
Yep.
To keep it at 25. Just so you guys know, currently there's 22 parcels in foreclosure. We'll probably add a few more in July, even August. I'll be working with the new town council to get that going. Touchy subject, so leave it at that.
And we get this money back too.
Yes.
Eventually.
We get it back eventually, it just doesn't go back to the foreclosure
Yep.
tax title budget. It's just-
I think that's an important point that everybody.
Yeah, the subcommittee did meet and we voted favorable. And, we're being certainly more aggressive in our foreclosures and people should know that. And the additional money spent to do that, I think, is well spent.
Any other question on budget 158 for tax title in the amount of 25,000? Motion by Jeff, second by Phil. All those in favor? Great. Town clerk, 161.
Amy couldn't be here tonight, so I was gonna do it on her behalf.
It's 1-1 now.
161.
161.
Any others?
There's not too much going on here. In the personal services, looking at a 4% increase, mostly contractual. However, we did have some overtime. As the last 3 or 4 years, we have been going
Multiple
back,
elections.
looking for transfers and whatnot. The big one last year was early voting. It's gonna happen again this next year. It's gonna be hand in hand with what we're gonna talk about at the next one, which is elections. Right now, they're also dealing with the census. It's creating a lot of overtime as well. Later on tonight, if we get to it, Tom's gonna speak to the transfer article, and what you are gonna see.
We'll get to it.
You will see a transfer from 161 for exactly what I'm talking about. So we wanted to, rather than continuously come back, this is a better approach of budgeting that particular section. Now, when you look at the general expenditures, it's an 8.5% increase, but the magnitude of the dollars isn't very high. But really talking an additional $500 for book binding, and that's just the cost that it is now. That's an actual bill from 2018. They were budgeting 370, the cost is 860. They have a tight budget, they go through that every year and really are scrounging at the end, so we needed to.
It's really, it's the overtime.
And
That's really what it
the
is.
reference books too, for the reference books that they create for the
Yeah,
municipal townspeople.
yeah.
Any other questions on Department 161, the town clerk? Jeff?
Just in the, in the attachment, it doesn't look, it should be 218, 317, right? I'm looking at the total of 6291, I don't know what the.
Yeah, good point. 218317. Yep, online it does say $6,291. So, yeah, she would be disappointed. So the amount of $218,317.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jeff, second by Vin. All those in favor, accepting it? Thank you. Elections, 162.
Yeah, elections, as you can see, there's quite an increase there, but this upcoming year, there's going to be some new election equipment, ballot boxes, I mean, looking at the equipment, as you know, even when you go vote, you see how dilapidated they are, they're in rough shape, so the majority of the cost is coming from that, plus the police details involved.
There's three elections.
Three elections.
You know.
Planned.
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 Yeah,
Planned.
So
But we've run into this every time there's a special election, we get a bump.
yeah.
It's not a surprise.
No, it's the way it is.
Following year, we'll bring it back down.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, every year there's a bump that it happens and then it goes back to normal.
Yep.
As long as the normal fits in the range, I think.
If it gets too out of control, we'll stop voting. Anyone got any other questions on elections? In the amount of $84,921. Do I have a motion to accept the budget, that amount? Motion by Vin, second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous. Concom,
Let's
171.
skip over that one,
Yep,
too.
absolutely.
Police
Please.
is table now.
You want to skip inspections right now, too?
You can do that one if you'd like.
All right, inspections, 240.
So this was another topic we had at our roundtable, talked about it a couple different times. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that there's been some changes in that department. The position of the building commissioner has been changed, or reclassified, I should say, to, from level 3 to level 4. And at the same time, they took the local, which having a little difficulty filling right now, from an hourly position to a salary position. So, building this budget right now, that position's not filled, so somewhat similar to what we talked about earlier with HR. And we just want to make sure we're in a position where we can hire proper talent. So, kind of the same situation, we budgeted a little higher, just to make sure we have the latitude to fill someone when they come in. Same time, part of the conversations, there is definitely a desire to bring in, to grow that department, but that's not gonna happen this year. We're tabling that discussion till next year. We wanna make sure that Matt gets his local, they can assess the situation from there, and make the best determination. If you look at the general expenses, they're level funded, so this is really just meant to set ourselves up to be able to hire properly.
Yep. Yep, so really, to be honest with you, if the personnel board doesn't raise that and there are no hires there, then that money's gonna fall down to the bottom line as well, depending on their classification. So it's budgeting just so that we don't get stuck and have to do a transfer for some reason, that position gets rated higher.
But that's not included in this, the new hire's not included.
No,
Nope.
But the local's still
But the,
open, right?
but the local's still open and the local's in there, which is a vacant position,
It's vacant
Okay.
right now.
but that's in the budget.
But that position is the one that went up, is that?
For both of them.
Both of them did.
That one went from hourly to salary.
Because I thought our current, I thought our cost for the building commissioner went down, or did it not?
That went up as well. That went from category 3 to category 4. You mean like the actual salary?
The actual salary.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
So
So
A
the
couple
actual salary
thousand
went
bucks.
down.
Went from 53 to 51, I believe.
That's all.
Oh, Matt, oh, sorry.
Yeah, the building
That went from
commissioner.
75 to 83.
But online, that is not, it has the 53 number still in there. Remember, we were gonna move that to 50, right? Am I
Right.
wrong?
No, you're right,
Okay.
5298, yes.
Because online, it still has the 53 in there.
So which position is jumping salary-wise for an 8.3% increase?
The local, we want to make sure it has enough, it's rather than just step one, we want to make sure we have built-in availability to be able to hire somebody.
Was
Exact
it 53? I thought it was 50.
Talked about with
Okay.
HR.
Almost positive. And then, like I said, if it doesn't go with that, then the money's gonna drop down to the bottom line if they don't hire at that level. Or reclassify that, yeah. So that being said, do I have a motion to accept
I
budget?
have
Oh,
one
I'm sorry,
question,
Vin.
a question. More like a question and a comment here. I remember when we first hired the person that is now being moved up to a salary position. This was, I don't know, 6 years ago, roughly? And at that time, the justification was there was too much work for the inspector, who I think at the time was still Joe DeLuca. And he needed a part-time assistant, it was said. That part-time assistant became full-time hourly, now is becoming a salaried instead of hourly, and we're looking to hire 1, 2 more part-time, which will eventually become full-time hourly, and then transformed into salary? I mean, is this the gist of it? And what justification do we have for this?
No, right now, we have a building commissioner. We will be filling the local building inspector. At that point, my preference would be, and the board's is to see that office operate for some time, then determine if, one, if there is a need, two, is it enough that we need a part-time person, or do we need a full-time person? I don't think any decisions have been made on that at this time. Right now, the goal is to fill both positions with qualified people, let them do their job along with the assistant zoning officer, which is a full-time position, and see that department operate.
And what is the
There's no-
specific need? I mean, is there an overwhelming need to inspect, housing units? Construction units?
Residential units, construction units, multifamily units have to be inspected every so many years. Task force is operational.
Periodic inspections for
Periodic,
businesses.
yeah, business inspections, so there is, as I see it, and as the board sees it, an increased need. Again, we're going to fill the positions we have right now. Then we will assess what, if anything, needs to be done after that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. When you have the need, we do it. But I would rather see it put straightforward. Instead of a part-timer, which eventually could become, I mean, ask for a full-timer right away. But,
They are asking.
Yeah.
This is for a full-time.
Just
Yeah.
want
And
to
it-
fill it with the other position first that's vacant.
will it be a
prior to-
hourly employee? Is that the cheapest way out?
Not necessarily, depending on overtime, but it's not at that point.
It's a salary position.
Right now, they're both
Yeah.
salary
Yeah,
positions.
that's correct.
Local used
And there's
to be
only
an
one
hourly.
vacant right
It's
now.
now a salary.
Yep.
They're both salary positions.
All right, thank you.
Let's move the question.
Yep. Department 240, is there a motion to accept budget 240 at the amount of $245,049?
I think it's 254.
254,920.
920.
254,920.
And again, you do have a master in there that's dated 4/25 as of today. Soft copy.
Is there a motion to accept the budget at
I'll make
$254,920?
a motion.
Motion by Vin, second by Mike. All those in favor? Done. Animal control, 292.
Animal control, general expenses are level funded for budget guideline, salaries and wages, there is an increase, and I'm trying to find the personal services sheet here. So there was a contractual increase through Article 2, but at the same time, they do have a part-time employee that did not have enough hours. It's, what, 10 hours?
Yeah, it's not many hours, so we increased the part-time, it's not a lot of money.
Basically for coverage.
I don't have it in front of me, but
Yeah.
this is a position that unfortunately doesn't have really regular hours at times, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So that's the reason.
We're talking even between the two of them, we're talking
$6,000.
$5,500.
Yeah, if that.
Okay, great.
Move.
Motion by Mike to accept budget
Second.
292 in the amount of $95,683, second by Vin. All those in favor? Hydrant Services, 296.
This one, unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it. It's, we get the number every year, this time of year, we give Condrey a call.
Number's the number.
It's 24% increase.
$1 million to
$1,024,488.
What was that number again, please?
$1,024,488.
What was the increase?
24%.
Well, that's pretty much the
Yep,
rate increase.
it is.
Exactly.
It's
And
exactly.
the Projection is now, yes, you're right.
Anybody have any, nothing to talk about?
Well,
So what's the reason for that?
there's a
Water rate increase.
Well, unfortunately.
Projected rate.
It
Yeah.
never made sense to me, but they get an increase for usage, it also applies to the hydrant service.
Which may never even have water out of them, it's just ridiculous.
Just a quick question. I don't know if we can talk about that here, but where are we in the process of the acquisition? Is there
I don't
any
think we
date?
can, yeah, it's nothing to
Get
talk
the
about.
article, I can give you a little update
It's,
if you'd
it's,
like, but-
yeah, it's in the DPU right now.
Get to the article, I'll be
Okay,
updated
all
when
right.
you get to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 296 Hydrant Services, do we accept a budget of $1,024,488? Motion by Joyce, second by Jeff, all those in favor? Now do 351.
351, I'm wondering if this came up, did 351 come up with your subcommittee?
Which one?
Norfolk Aggie.
Which is Norfolk.
It's one I accidentally did with,
No.
Yeah,
with
so
Vince.
typically for the past, like, since I've been here, it's been 285, we level funded every year. I spoke with Kathy Perry, I said, hey, we're going with 285, she said she actually wanted to up it to 310, which is 8.8% increase, or 25,000. Said, why are we gonna do that when we have surplus every single year? They know through school choice out that a increase of these students will be going to this vocational school. They felt that it was necessary to make sure we could have it.
And they're big money when they go to Norfolk Eddy, everyone's like 15,000.
How much?
They're like 15,000 to go to
No,
Norfolk
no.
Eddy, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's 20-some.
Identified two students.
Is it
No,
20?
but I'm saying, it used to be 18. I think we're up over 20,
Oh, I thought.
but I'm guessing.
I don't know exactly.
Either way.
Dr. Brown, isn't it north of 20?
Pretty significant.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know that we have a choice,
Yep.
but
And if they don't go, it's gonna fall down anyway.
Exactly.
Motion to accept 351 in the amount of 310,000. Motion by Mike, second by Al. All those in favor? 352.
Medicaid recovery, this particular budget is staffing where they work on it, and seek reimbursement, so it's somewhat similar to foreclosure and tax title. So the more work they're able to do and submit Medicaid eligible
Oh, yeah, that's
students,
true, yeah.
it comes back. And again, this has been 25,000 for the past, probably since I've been here also. So I reached out to Kathy, hey, we're going with 25. Says, hey, you know what, we should jump that up to 30,000. And I do agree with her. This past year, if you look at Article 4, it's kind of all over the place. 2015, we spent about 13,000. 2016, spent 21,000. Last year was 10,000. However, we encumbered a good amount of money, so we're already over 25,000 right now. And indications are that it's going to be closer to $30,000.
Which one of those funds? that
Which
returns?
money does come back to
Yep.
us. and
Zach, what have we
it's pretty
recovered?
large.
What have we
You have that, Fred? It's like 350.
Used to be a good size, no, it used to be in the
400.
Between 250 and 400.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Kind of
good.
one of those make or breaks on free cash too, so
Yep.
usually on June 30th, we get a big number coming in and makes me
Yeah,
happy.
years ago, we didn't do as well there.
Good 30,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's for 30 grand to recover
Yeah.
400,000, it's
Good.
pretty good return.
Investment.
Stock market.
Motion to accept 352 in the amount of 30,000. Motion by Jack, second by Vin. All those in favor? Highway 421.
Who does
Any
that?
subcommittee reports on that one? I was expecting Scott to be here.
Joyce, you met with Scott?
Yeah, we met with Scott, and that's pretty much contractual, plus he has other money in there for the two new employees for their clothing allowance, and,
Yeah, because his general expenses went up 0, so.
yeah.
So it's all contractual.
I think they're looking for a part-time employee as well for,
Yeah, I
As
think that was like a sharing
administrative.
kind of thing, yeah.
yeah.
So this is an additional employee as well.
Not additional, no, it's,
Are-
he was looking to,
There you go.
my understanding is he has somebody that floats from town hall down there sometimes.
A substitute, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he's covering part of that salary, so he's hoping that, and he said he needs the help down there anyways, because especially like this past winter, he needed the extra help down in the office when they were down there dispatching and dispatching all the plows
That
and
was a
stuff
small
like that.
amount
so-
anyway for the subsidy.
Yeah,
It was
it's
very
not,
small.
it was
It was
very
the
small.
sub pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most of it's contractual on the workers, so. Department is asking for $1,238,437. Motion to accept by Jack,
Motion, yeah.
second by Joycey. All those in favor? Unanimous. 422, secondaries, highway department budget. That's their maintenance, oh
A
no.
1.2% increase. I don't know if Joyce, if you want
Yeah.
to get into that one too.
Yeah, I mean, that's just in his general expenses. It's just to make sure that, because he sends guys out when they're doing construction on the roadways and stuff. He sends out a crew just to make sure that everything's going well. So he put a little extra in there this year, just in anticipation that he's going to get more road work done. And,
It's still 1.2%. It's under
yeah,
the
yeah.
motion to accept 422 in the amount of $1,023,960. I'm sorry.
Just one
Yep,
quick
yep.
comment too, just in addition to what Joyce said. Scott did put a line item in there for 10 grand for the bike trail, that because he helps the park department. That 10 grand, he has to rent, when it starts to get overgrown, every other year or so, he has to rent a machine with an operator. That's that. If he doesn't use it, it's gonna drop back.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Great.
How do we do with the snow and ice fund this year?
We're gonna find that out now.
Do we expect it
That's
to
the
be
next
in the
one.
negative, or?
Coming next.
Oh, yeah, it's another negative.
It wasn't good.
450,000 negative, yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Jeff, second by Joycey, for $1,023,960, 422. All those in favor? Unanimous. Snow and ice. 423.
Snow and ice, we're going with the same number. I think all yous know that if you increase it at the annual town meeting, you cannot decrease it. So we all also know 600,000 probably is not sufficient for any given year. However, we have been positioning ourselves well with free cash and setting ourselves up with the ability to clear it. And we want to make sure we don't go too high and end up in a situation there as well. So we're sticking with the 600,000.
Yeah. And we changed that, what is it, 4 years ago, and I think we're
Yeah.
pretty comfortable with not moving that number from 6.
I mean, Scott had said in the subcommittee meeting, it was like 10,000 an inch was sort of a benchmark to
Yeah.
use. So to an average year, that's
Yeah.
really not.
No, it's not, but as to Zach's point, if we move that number up, and that was the argument we had 3 or 4 years ago, when we went up from when it was, I think, was it 5, we went to 6?
Yeah.
That you can't move it back down, so.
Have we been under in the last 5 years? So is it time to maybe go up another 100 grand?
No.
To 700?
Maybe not a
Why
year,
not?
we're adding 7 other people.
Well, I mean, the budget is the budget. I mean,
Well, the good thing, is next year if we have a light winter, and we don't need it.
Global warming, right?
what we, yeah.
Yeah,
We've
but
never not needed it as a.
It would
I
fall
understand
to the
that.
bottom
Point
line.
well taken, but we
Yeah.
have been positioning ourselves purposely to have the funds available to take care of this, which we will see later on today with an article. So I don't have any issues with that.
Motion to accept 423 in the amount of 600,000. Motion by Vin, second by Andy. All those in favor? Unanimous. Waste collection at 431.
Yeah, as you see, it's a very small increase by the department, 1.9%. And much of that it has to do with collection contracts. You know, the increase, whether it be with Republic or Wheelabrator. So with the normal contractual increases there, and Mr. Mazzucchelli figures FY19 budget for that alone will be 1.25 million, which is an increase. And then the disposal costs, the recycling, pickup, disposal, they're up. He's projecting that to be 1.86 million, so.
And actually, still under the 2%, 1.9%.
Yes.
That's great. Motion to accept 431 at $2,042,880. Motion by Al, second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, did we skip 425, or are we not going over that on-street parking?
That was already approved.
We did that
was on the
last
approval
time.
side a couple weeks ago.
Some were already approved previously.
Yeah, we did some last meeting.
Want to make sure.
Yep, no, thank you. Health Department, 510, 1.4%.
1.4%. Yeah, the only thing really to note there is, you see a huge decrease of
General
42.5 general expenses. That came from me a few years ago when they had a consultant that they were paying. I don't like to pay any consultants out of personal services. I'd rather do it through general expenses. So at that time, we dropped it down. He's reverting that back to, taking it out of there and to transfer it to an employee for a public health nurse position that's already an existing position.
Fantastic. And he's under.
And he's under, yeah.
So, accept I'm sorry, any other questions? Yep, Mike?
Why did personnel go up 8%?
Because the 15,500, sorry, can't talk tonight, came out of the consultant.
Moved up a
and
line.
moved up into salaries and wages.
Motion to accept 510 in the amount of $303,098. Motion by Joycey, second by Phil. All those in favor? Unanimous. 541, Council on Aging.
Yeah, this, I think, is going up, if I'm correct, $4,500.
Yeah.
The reason for that is, part of this, the town picked up 11 months.
Oh, that's what this was.
Yeah.
Yep, I forgot.
We decided, and the selectmen have agreed to pick up that 12th month. That 12th month represents $4,500. So that is the,
Yep.
I believe, the only
It is,
increase
yeah.
in that budget.
And I apologize. What was that reason about the 11 months? Why did we do that?
I don't know,
I
to
don't-
be
They
honest.
They said it
with
at the
you.
meeting, and I forgot what it was. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't recall it.
Yeah.
so it's $4,500 to increase the budget to cover the last month.
12th month.
Yep. A motion to accept 541 in the amount of $64,116. Motion by Jack, second by Al. All those in favor? Unanimous. Youth Services, 542.
Youth services, couple things happening here. Personal services, which, that you know, there's many employees at the youth center. However, 2 of them are picked up in the general fund under Department 542. That's Jen Ward, the director, and the assistant, Katie. There's a 5.8% increase. It's a combination of stepping as well as the personnel board had reclassified the position from a hourly position to a salary position. The director was simply just not working within 35 hours, significantly more hours. The overtime would have been significant. She hadn't been putting in for it. However, we would have been obligated legally to pay it. So it made sense from that standpoint to change it to a salaried position. And this is just budgeting properly for that. Now, the big thing to know with this budget here is, for the first time, there's a general expense budget. It's $17,000. The main point of this was with doing the surveillance system. There's annual recurring costs as well as a few others. Do you have that in front of you, Tom? Rick? So rather than it jumping into Rick's 192 budget, we decided it would probably make sense, and we had this conversation with the roundtable with the selectmen who were supporting it as well, to keep new growth, quote unquote, if you will, in its own general expense budget rather than tapping on top of the public building and property.
And just putting it in their own budget instead of putting it in Rick's.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
then at the same,
17,000 just to monitor?
no, it's not solely that, I'm trying to find my notes on it here.
That seems
It-
heavy.
It's
No, it
not
isn't
solely
just that,
that.
it's like three things.
Custom alarm was part of one of the articles, his annual cost there. There was, the same time while we were doing this repair and maintenance budget, we also put in a miscellaneous and an office supplies, which was 2,000 and 3,000 respectively. And what was that, 12,000
Yeah.
for the repairs piece.
I mean, $5,000 is just slush? I'm confused.
They also, that we just put in, a printing, a new lease printer over there, which they'll be paying for it out of their office supplies as well.
So we're increasing their expense budget by $5,000.
We're creating an expense
Creating.
budget.
One way or another.
Yes.
We're giving them $5,000 more in expenses.
17,000 more.
17,000.
Yes.
And they've spent, except for the increases that you mentioned of, the monitoring. Last year, they spent,
They had to pick it all up out of the revolving fund, but they didn't have these new surveillance system, custom alarm.
no, Zach, I understand, if I may.
Yeah.
I understand the new stuff, but they didn't print last year?
They did. They picked it up out of the revolving fund.
So why wouldn't we let them do it again?
Because it's kind of getting tight and they're using that money to properly staff the building.
Properly, getting nervous. I keep hearing we're properly staffing, we're adding people here, we're adding people there. This whole properly staffing or level service
Meaning like
jargon.
summer camp.
Remember now, the participation of these students has grown.
Exactly.
She came in with figures that.
Yeah, but Tommy, that's great, because they make profit when the students grow. So I'm confused. If we make money every time we add students, why is it costing us more money to add students?
You make money at camps.
Yes.
You don't make money on day-to-day programs.
But it falls into their budget. See, I guess what I'm hearing is last year, out of the revolving fund that the camp dumps in,
Yeah.
they paid for these things.
Well, I mean, the full picture, they've also gotten $25,000 gift fund that's depleted, that's gone. They've used that for all sorts of random items. There's been grants, 5 or 6 of them over the years, all depleted, gone. So it's getting to a point where all these other special revenue funds, if you will, are all gone. So it's,
But I thought we didn't use special revenue funds to set up reoccurring expenses. I'm just nervous, because, I'm hearing, okay, well, what we used to cover, we don't cover. Why didn't we get grants again? Do we know?
the state, those were earmarked grants, state earmarked, so there's no more state earmarked grants.
Okay,
you know?
but we keep
Yeah.
having the expenses, I guess I'm
Maybe
confused.
Jen could come in, if you're having another
Yeah,
meeting,
we're
she
gonna
can
have to.
explain it
Okay.
way better than I
There
do.
are some
you know?
additional maintenance expenses, I think, with a new gym floor, with new things of that nature.
Rick, I'm
Again, I don't have
okay.
the number, but I'm
What
saying-
worries me is when I say, I think, maybe, possibly, this is real dollars.
There are.
I mean, it's $17,000.
Well, and at the same time, all these other public buildings fall into 192, so it's very easy to go, town administrator, I need this, I need that, I need this.
Zach, I'm not saying dump it on Rick. I'm just wondering, how come we need to increase, whether it be Rick or the youth, anywhere? 17 grand is real money.
Yes, it is.
So do you want to ever in, Mr. Correa?
I don't know how you vote on something we don't know.
All right.
And I'm not second guessing you, Zach, but,
Just bring her in.
So we'll go back to that, because we're gonna have to have another meeting.
right.
Since I'm having another meeting, you wanna do Parks Choice here, do you wanna see how it goes?
Yeah.
Alright. 565, Parks Department. Sorry, I'm looking.
He's got a 3.4% increase, some of it's contractual,
I
right?
think Joyce.
Oh, sorry, Joyce. No,
That's okay.
All right, Tom.
Chris, it's the 650 budget.
right.
Yeah, what's the budget
Yeah.
number I was
Did
gonna
I
So,
say 650?
You said
Oh, I
560.
apologize,
Yeah.
650, no wonder why I can't find it.
That's why I couldn't
So-
find
Sorry,
it.
650,
All
guys.
right. Subcommittee met with the Parks Department, and what they did was they added an additional $3,900 for the trail maintenance. What that is they're gonna add about 255 hours so that they can keep up with all the maintenance on the trail. And that's pretty much what that is. The other is, of course, their contractual obligations.
Everything is contractual obligations, but they want another 4,000
But
to help on the.
4,000 on the trail, and didn't Scotty just add
Yeah, the highway.
10,000 on the
No,
trailer?
He's been funding that out of his budget. He just added a separate line item to identify that. It was all, that was, I won't say it was buried, but he was taking that out of his normal budget. What he did was he pulled a line.
Subtract
He subtracted it out and just put,
It's different
But
maintenance.
if you're just moving it, I'm perfectly comfortable.
He just moved it.
He just
They're
moved it.
adding it, $3,900.
That's what I'm saying. The $4,000 they're adding is not being moved. That's an incremental spend.
That's exactly right. Yep. And I sat in on the subcommittee with Joycey, and you know, since the trail came out, and what is it, 12.8 miles or something?
yeah, it's,
Up and down or whatever. We've never increased the amount of funding for the trail. $3,900 for such a I frequently used, I'm sorry, it's getting late, I'm losing my words, frequently used thing. I don't think $3,900 is an unreasonable request to increase that, to take care of that trail. They do a very good job with it, you know, but obviously, it's whatever the committee thinks, but I sat in the committee, they made a very good point. I apologize, Mr. Bashani was unavailable tonight, and it wasn't for $3,900. I thought maybe Joyce could handle it, and she did good, so. Does anyone have any questions that Joyce or I could answer?
I have just one comment. As you know, I was on that committee to restore Milford Pond, and I went down to look at the pond down by the boat ramp. And I was shocked to see that the area to the left and right of the boat ramp is all full of trash. Coffee cups, papers, beer cans, whiskey bottles, all kinds of stuff. And I was wondering if you can get the word back to Mike Brashani that maybe if he can put up a couple of 55-gallon drums, secure them to the steel benches there, maybe we can induce people to start throwing their trash in there.
I think if we tell him he gets like $3,900, he'll put some trash barrels there for you, Vin. Either way, he'll put it, but I'll talk to Mr. Bashani about that, boat ramp.
Let me just say, one addition to that is there's a one-time fee for the 9,000 in lighting and other electrical needs for Draper Park, and that's gonna be a one-time cost that's embedded in there as well.
just
Is that right?
at the subcommittee meeting.
Yeah?
They took that's not in there. They were gonna put it as an article, but, the,
Citizens for Milford.
right, they have a, like a GoFundMe page. They're gonna try to raise as much money as they can. And if they don't get the whole 9,000, then the Parks Department's gonna come back and ask for the difference. But that'll be an article on the fall meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's to put the Christmas lights back at Draper Park.
Draper Park. But they're funding that through the GoFundMe page. But they might be back in October, depending how that goes, for the lights.
So that's
Which is
not
a-
in that original, that's not in the budget we're voting tonight?
No, I think,
Okay.
no.
Be back
Is that
that-
campaign active right now?
I don't know. I'll ask him about that, too.
He was gonna get with them during the course of the summer to see how that was going too.
Okay. But I'll ask him about it as well, just to follow up. I'm not talking about the boat trash. Any other questions regarding the Parks Department? Motion to accept Parks Department 650 in the amount of $767,811. Motion by Vin, second by Al. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Can't find that, baby.
9/11, retirement and pension.
So I've been pretty vocal about this throughout the year. It was on the goals and objectives sheet that we had. This is really adopting a different funding schedule. It's a little more aggressive with a final funding of 2035. It was a 7%, right, son? 6.5% increase, so you're probably asking yourself, why is it 7.8? So we have 4 different units within our pension systems: geriatric authority, it's sewer, it's housing, and it's the town of Milford. So The town of Milford, they're all called different units, and they're allocated on the 6.5% funding schedule, but it's divvied up between each unit. And the town of Milford, with certain positions like we're talking about tonight, has shifted the percentage more onto the town, hence a 7.8% increase.
But don't we get the money back that we pay for Countryside? I thought when we did expenses for the geriatric, that got paid back like.
They do, but, so the full funding schedule is 6.5%, and they are paying their portion. Town of Milford's paying theirs, the sewer pays theirs, and housing pays theirs. But within that 6.5% increase, it's divvied up among.
But we'll get the money back from the
Yes,
units, and
they
that
do.
just drops into the general fund.
Goes directly to the retirement fund.
Okay,
Nothing
whatever it
directly.
is, it's not incremental real spend, because
Yeah.
we get it back.
Not really. This is 7.8, this is ours and ours only.
Oh.
That's going into the retirement fund. They're paying theirs into the retirement
So
fund.
this is pure us.
This is pure us,
This is
yes.
Perrick, right?
Eric, yes, yep.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then
we
we.
talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I did talk to Zach about this, and basically, we're we've been funding it at a rate that will be paid out over 37 years, and we're trying to cut that back to 35 years, and that's why we have the increase, okay? Which makes
Which
sense.
the rest of the state is on. We were like
Right.
the last
This is the one you
holdout.
came like for years ago and said, I want
Yes.
to, I want to
Yes.
start moving
Yes.
towards it.
Yes.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
I mean,
So-
this has got a yield assumption of what, 7.5%, I
Yes.
think we're on the
Yeah.
pension. So frankly, I don't believe for 1 minute that this is gonna reduce the time period meaningfully, but I understand the.
Neither do I, like 5 years from now.
Andy, you made that point at the time.
I
when
just
we
wanted to
did
make it one more time.
You did it again, you know?
I was gonna make the
And
I was gonna make the same point. They reduced it from 7.6 to 7.4. I said, boy, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Any other questions about 911? All right, anyone make a motion to accept budget 911 in the amount of $4,807,244? Motion by Jack, second by Phil. All those in favor?
You can have it. Okay.
Employee health insurance 914.
Bill, do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, just give me a sec. Yeah, the subcommittee did meet. Health insurance went up at a rate of 5.2%. Dental went up at 2.5%. These are already contracted increases, and I guess we have signed contracts at these
Yep,
rates.
selectmen have thus voted
So-
them, yep.
So there's really not much to say, other than it's done.
So when you look at 5.2% for health, which clearly makes up the vast majority of this budget, and you look at the budget of 4.6%, which is lower than that, we took a good hard look at the budget, which we knew had surplus in it. It's one of those budgets that it usually does because of how versatile it is. Want to make sure we're all set there. But we scaled it back a little bit to tighten up. Hence, with a 5.2% increase, we're really coming in with a 4.6. Now, Simon.
Yeah, and I think you still have a little room if we do anything with the HR person or the
Yes.
special operating units,
Yes.
or any, additional hires. I think there's room in that budget to
Yes.
handle that.
Exactly. Yep.
All those in favor of accepting budget 914 in the amount of $18,553,000? Oh, no, $13 million.
$13 million.
$146,000. Motion by Joyce, second by Jeff. All those in favor? Unanimous.
That's a good, you gotta pay them.
Want to go back to Concom?
You gotta pay them.
Did you
What are
wanna-
we doing
you wanna
next?
do Article 2?
You wanna do you wanna do school or police? Do you wanna get any of these
Yep.
other, or sewer?
Yep, 155.
Didn't we accept that one, Andy?
We did that.
The school.
We did
Andy.
I
155.
think the number was the number on
only a
your
minute
sheet,
and a half.
which wasn't updated.
Right.
We should do school or police.
Should be 539,660. You might have said 559.
That's with the school too. I don't know if you were meaning to do that full vote on.
I was trying to do it all at
Okay.
once. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But you said there was nothing new in there.
No, it was
Even with the school, the same as
0%.
last year.
Yeah.
That's why I did it all together.
So the number should be 539,663.
Correct.
150, said 550.
155, Chris.
I said 559,663. Is that not right?
It's
Five, that's a 3, no? I don't know where.
That was with the 18,000 we pulled out from the other night.
Oh, for the thing.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
539,663.
539,663. All right, Robert's Rule Man, what do I got to do?
Motion to
Correct. Yeah, to
correct
amend.
the previous
Amount?
amount, because in my opinion, nobody's doubting that we would change it. We just made a typo.
Yep.
So I'd make a motion to correct the previous amount.
Second.
Motion by Jack. All those in favor of changing the number to 539,663? Unanimous. Thank you. Good call. All right. I think we're gonna skip schools. We're gonna skip police. I think we're gonna skip Article 2.
Okay.
We'll have them
Do you
come
wanna
in.
do
Oh,
school?
do you want,
No?
Do you wanna do school? Or do you wanna have them come in? I think they need to come in. Don't you, Mr. Seer McCauley?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's up to you. You wanna do it?
Mr. Chairman, why don't I just mention why I wanted to skip
Yep.
over those?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so at the last meeting, Personnel Board was in to talk about Article 2, and they really, the focus of the conversation was on salaries and the hourly rated. At the same time, they also did a study on the clerks. They didn't really get to it at that last meeting. So we are in a similar situation where some of these departments that have salaries and wage, personal services, I should say, solely for a clerk budget, had submitted their budget at the, I'll call it old or existing, the one that's
Article
moving
2.
forward
Yep.
now. And the new study had come out, and they're staying with that study. So we're at a position now of, do we change the budget for the Article 2 clerks that's gonna move forward now? Or do we see if it passes and we, in October, if it does, supplement the budget? We're not talking a lot of money,
600,000.
but there is a difference.
What's your recommendation? I would say we wait till October.
We can do that.
Just, I don't wanna do it all over again.
Yeah, I don't have a problem whatsoever with that, and I don't think anyone's gonna have a problem, so should it pass. There's clearly would be sufficient money to pay them until October. The difference potentially could be, this says 10,000 here, although I think it would be less.
It's less than that.
I think we're talking $6,000 total for all budgets.
All budgets,
Yeah.
We'll deal with it in October.
All right. So with that said, we could go back to the other
All right.
ones if you'd like.
You're saying Article 2 is gonna be presenting with a clerk paid position
Yeah,
that's
if-
different than what we're budgeting?
Yes.
recorder.
It's section H, at the very end of Article 2. I don't know if anyone has it in front of you.
Yeah, board clerks.
Yeah.
Well,
Some went up, some went down,
Yep.
net effect probably
Yep.
$6,000.
$6,000. All right, so we'll deal with that in October. It's just gonna be easier. So with that being the case, you wanna go back to Concom?
Yeah, yep.
171.
Yep, so point blank, 2% increase per what the original budget guideline was on the clerk's positions. It's a 2% increase in a level funded general expense.
Any questions about Concom 171? Motion to accept 171 in the amount of $6,576 by Mike, second by Al. All those in favor?
Personnel Board.
Personnel Board
152.
152.
Exact same situation,
Exact same
2%
situation.
increase, 0 for general expenses, 1.8 overall.
Motion to accept Personnel Board 152 in the amount of $5,560. Motion by Jack, second by Vin. All those in favor? Done. All right, so we're gonna do police,
I'll do school too.
can we do articles first and then come back to school? Get these guys.
Yeah, get them out of here.
Go on.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
All right, Finance Director, Article 22 in the warrant.
Did you happen to put that letter on the drive? I'm curious. I mean, I could speak to it, but I don't really need anyone to reference either. I'm just wondering what people's background are on it.
See what 22 is. Oh, no, I did not.
All right, no big deal.
Give it
Oh,
the,
this,
We talked about.
yeah, this was also in our goals and objectives. I presented it a couple different times to the selectmen, but FinCom as well. We got a really cool opportunity right now. to clean up the balance sheet, kind of one of those multiple birds at one stone situation. So there's a need right now to appropriate additional funding to the Woodland School project. There was a significant change order that took place about probably 5 or 6 months ago, north of 300,000. If you recall, we were and still are well under the original appropriated amount. However, change order did come in. There's certain loose ends that need to be tied up, so I still, as of right now, can't honestly tell you the exact closeout. Now, we're very much at the tail end of this project. MSBA is reimbursing us, and they hold off the final 5% of reimbursement until the project is closed out. All documentation submitted to the MSBA, and they do a final audit. Once everything passes, they will give you the final 5%. So right now, we're in deficit status, doing interfund borrowing, meaning we have pretty good overall cash flow, so I'm borrowing from different funds. And right now, we have about a $1.6 million deficit. 1.4 million is absolutely going to be coming back from the MSBA once it's closed out. We do have a few contracts with remaining balances, so we will be continuing this deficit, and we know after the 1.4 comes in, there will be a need to appropriate funds, still within the authorization to borrow, but we do not want to we don't want to borrow, we don't need to borrow. So at the same time, we had a project about 6 or 7 years ago with the Geriatric Authority where we did an expansion to the rehab facility. That project was 6.2 million. At the time we borrowed it, all indications were it would be 6.2 million. Project wasn't 6.2, it was less than that. So we have $365,000 on our balance sheet, which resulted from bond proceeds, so commonly referred to as surplus bond proceeds, with very limited options. Basically, in this situation, one option under Chapter 44, Section 20 will allow us to transfer to a like-kind project of similar bonding terms, hence Woodland.
Good.
So really unique, cool opportunity came in. We have to change order of north of 300,000, surplus bond proceeds, similar project. So we're going to take from one, all legally, lawfully, to the letter of the law, move it over to the other capital project. And then that's what this article is going to do. Now, there's going to be, I wrote this memo to the selectmen. I'll get it up on the drive for anyone
Yeah, I
who's
apologize.
interested.
I'll get that.
So there will be, I'm calling like an aftermath of it, should this pass town meeting, which it should, it's all good things here. It makes sense that the geriatric still has to pay 6.2 million back to us, which is a little unfair, given that we're gonna be taking 365,000 from them. So what I'm asking the selectmen to do, when this passes town meeting, is to have an agreement between the geriatric trustees and the Board of Selectmen to forgive reimbursement back to us starting in fiscal 19 to the tune of 365,000.
Yep. There you go. Okay, makes sense.
I'm asking for it to take place in fiscal 19 and not sooner, because the reimbursement is an important part of our local receipts that's on our balance sheet and goes into the tax recap. Fiscal 18, tax recap's done, it's set, so I really don't want to see a disruption there where if this takes place at the start of July, we'll know about it in advance, and I'll be able to write to the Department of Revenue and recognize it right then and there immediately. So, all good things here, and
Basically a shell game, guys. The money's going, and we're using the geriatric money to pay for our thing, and then we're taking it off their bill.
Yep.
Is really what it comes down to.
What was the change order of Woodland School?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember. It was a whole bunch of different things. It was with the general contractor, so I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Any other questions for Zach on Article 22? A motion for a favorable recommendation on Article 22? Motion by Jack, second by Phil. All those in favor? Unanimous. 28.
28 is an article that I'll be presenting, which is, we have some articles that have been satisfied, where we appropriated a certain amount of money. We didn't need all the money, and the article has actually been, like I said, satisfied. So we're looking to take these articles, close them out, and really, only a couple of them are 3 years old or less, so they're relatively, new and depleted, not depleted, but satisfied. To make note here, one of the largest ones is, first of all, the total amount is $168,000 that we're looking to close out the articles, get that back into the general fund.
That's fantastic.
One of the largest ones is the middle school lease operations, obviously, now that it's sold, we're not gonna need that $110,000 that was earmarked for, middle school lease. The other one is the Louisa Lake Dam inspection, that's pretty much, an engineering, piece of it, and everything's been satisfied there, so I have a total of 9 articles that I'm gonna be presenting that we look to close on, it's 168.
Can we have that list? Because we always include it.
You should have it
It's on
in
the
there.
drive.
No, it's on the drive, it's on the
It's on
submitted
the
budget.
drive, but there it is, right there.
Perfect.
Great job. I know that we've been yelling about that for several years, about cleaning up old articles. You guys have done a great job doing that. And I said it the other night at the selectmen meeting, the fact that our oldest article's like 3 years old here that we're trying to clean up is fantastic. Because we shouldn't leave money laying around and have it not be spent if people aren't gonna use it.
I was trying to be recognized before you said that, because I wanted to return the favor, so you did mention that the other day, which I appreciated, but I have been in front of this committee as well, asking part of you, when you're in your subcommittees, to review them, and I know everybody has, so I think it's been a really cool team effort here.
Been
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Great job. 2-9.
Article 29, I'll also be presenting, this is a transfer in funds within budget, so it's really a house clean and keepsake, and you should have the list there.
It says close out special.
And at the very bottom is transfer summary. It's in the folder for submitted budgets, but we can put it into that.
So, we can go over a few of them if everybody has it, but one of which is, I'll speak about my department, which is the accounting department. From the prior accountant to myself, there's a change in salaries there, and we need to appropriate for that. Treasurer has some as well through his tax title. He's gonna need some funds there. We have the town clerk.
When you do the police.
That's the really only one, that's a significant dollars.
Okay, well, the police one is, that's.
Yeah, but sewer's their money. We're just moving it, but yeah.
Now,
Mr. Chairman,
keep it,
I have something with the police.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. But, okay, you wanna speak on that now, or? I
You,
mean,
Jack, whatever you
this
want.
30,000 has to do with the 85,000 that the assessors found. Well, we've been able to earmark 30,000 of that for the police, and that has to do with cleaning up, some of the, street lights.
Street lighting and gasoline costs, yeah. They just had an excessive amount of repairs.
Doesn't.
It's more the budget.
It's, you're the budget,
Yeah, the
Jack.
budget, yeah. We'll do that.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any questions on these transfers? There's nothing major there.
You can vote on Article 28.
He's right.
I know there was a motion and a second, wasn't there? Was there?
No.
Motion to accept Article 2, for favorable recommendation on Article 28 by Vin, second by Al. All those in favor? Thank God the press is here.
Miss that one.
So back to 29. Any questions on the transfers?
Yeah, 30 grand to police and 35 sewer, just, these are all net, because they're coming from
Yes.
bottom to top or top to bottom.
With the sewer, that is the biggest one, 35,000. They had a contract negotiation, and they did not, like a lot of collective bargaining or departments do, they did not go back to town meeting as they felt they had it within their budget, so, which they did, so they're taking it from within their general expenses to move it up to salaries and wages for their latest collective bargaining agreement.
And that comes out of their
All
funding.
from within their enterprise fund. Yep. Nothing on general fund side.
And the 30,000 for police is net neutral also.
Yeah, that's when, earlier, we talked about the assessors with 85,000, that is gonna be surplus, so we took that opportunity to use it as a funding for this exact situation, funding source for the
Streetlights and
Right.
gasoline increase. Anybody else have any other questions on Article 29? Motion for favorable recommendation by Jeff, second by Jack. All those in favor? Article 27 is our article, and that is snow and ice. Is it 450 on the nose?
It's 450, damn, I didn't bring it. It should be broken out between two amounts, salaries and wages versus general expenses. And I forgot, I didn't bring it with me.
We'll do it next time.
All right, cool. I think it's 190, but.
All right, we'll do it next time. All right, so the only articles left, Mr. Valani, do you want to do your selectmen articles?
Which one, what do you have?
Thank you for your patience, Rick. I know it's been a long night. All right, Article 11. Article 11, where are we? Oh, Water Company, Article 11.
11 and 12 of water.
Yes. Article 11 seeks appropriation for water company consulting services. Mike, gladly asked where are we at. Briefly, I can tell you, as you know, December negotiations broke down for a number of reasons. The selectmen then elected to acquire the company as an asset sale with a price to be set by the DPU. The statute requires first a petition to the SJC, the Supreme Judicial Court. They request the court to appoint the DPU to basically set the price. This petition was filed, and it was filed in late June. So
Yeah.
that's where we're at now.
Has the DPU taken up the case yet?
No, not yet.
No, I don't think so.
That's part of it.
So it was filed when, Rick?
Late January.
Okay.
Late January.
What was the amount on this?
300,000.
Okay.
So basically, we expect that the SJC will send the case to the DPU. Then, now, the proceedings begin. Number of things to complete the DPU process, basically broken down into legal, the petition, the DPU direct filing, and it's like a trial. Discovery, there's an evidentiary hearing, and then there's a time frame for the filing of briefs, legal briefs. Obviously, as part of this, we're going to need consulting services. Those will include engineering, someone will evaluate the condition of the system, depreciation, and then the third piece would be an accounting piece. Obviously, again, you guys know more about this, but utility accounting evaluation, market comparables, things of that nature. So, I'm not sure how long it will take.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long do you think that
Likely,
process, yeah.
Probably, what I'm being told, up to 9 months. Once they
Once they
undertake it.
once they start,
Okay,
yeah,
so,
okay.
So obviously.
Cutting the clock, when are you going to leave us, Phil?
That's right. I forgot about that.
Thrill a minute.
Oh, that's why, don't think, trust me, if he was asking, it was for a
I was trying to
reason.
think why he was asking.
It's been a thrill a minute tonight, I have to tell you.
With that said, that's why you did not see a budget for the water company within Article 4. We're gonna wait for October and hopefully learn more at that point.
Yeah. Rick, one other question, if you don't mind. Is the DPU finding, can that be appealed, or is that final?
No, the town, we're in a position where we do not have to accept
Yeah, but, okay.
price. No, we don't have to.
But there is no appeal, the price that they come
It's
up with
covered as
is
the
the
price.
price, and we
Okay.
can have it take it or leave it.
Then town council Jerry Moody filed legislation that we are now not locked in
Yep.
to that price. So, comes out less, we win, comes out more.
We
We
want.
decide whether we want it.
Decide
Oh, we decide.
where we're at
Right,
at that
that's
point.
right.
So,
Okay.
we do have that flexibility.
All right, great, okay.
Any other questions for Rick on Article 11?
Yeah.
Motion for a favorable recommendation on Article 11 by Phil, second by Jack. All those in favor? Unanimous. 12, pay rates.
Very, very simple. We did this at October last year to set the pay rates. Just given a cost of living increase 2% across the board. We just want to make sure it remains competitive. That's it. Same rates, no jumbling around, no new positions, nothing like that. Same thing, COLA, 2%.
Any questions on Article 12? Motion for a favorable recommendation by Mike, second by Vin. All those in favor? 13.
There's my-
Oh, no. Oh, no. No 13.
That's Passover.
Yeah, passed over. Sorry.
ESPN.
24.
We're not, if you're gonna have another
Yeah.
meeting, we'll wait for that too.
Okey-dokey.
If you want it up for me.
All right, with that being said, we have 3 budgets left. We have the school department, we have the police department, and we have, who was it? Youth Services.
Youth, yep.
Thank you. Besides that, we've covered the entire warrant. Great job, everybody. We're gonna start to tackle police and schools. I have a funny feeling that we're gonna be continuing this conversation in another meeting. Just a hunch. With that being said, Jack, thank you guys very much. You can, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So Jack, why don't you give us an update on the police budget? That is budget
220.
220, 210?
Last week, Phil Eldo and myself met with the chief concerning the budget. We agreed after discussing it completely that the budget is not ready to have a decision by the subcommittee, and there are some matters coming up that, in order to make a decision on that budget, we feel that the full committee should review it and see that some of the additions to the budget, how it sets with this committee. So I asked the chairman if we could make a meeting to meet with the chief. He was busy Monday with the selectmen, Tuesday and Wednesday, he was busy. We can either have a special meeting with them in the school or the next scheduled meeting. But I think it's an important meeting, important enough for all our members attempt to make that meeting in order to see the change, because it involves quite a large financial increase to the budget. I'm not trying to keep you in suspense, but I'd much rather keep it there.
Yeah, no, I sent out the thing, you guys got the email I had with the proposal for the special task force. I also sent the link in there to the YouTube video, right where it started. I don't know if any of you watched that exciting video, but to get an idea of what Jack is alluding to. But to his point, when I spoke to Aldo and Jack and Phil, that we're gonna try to have the police chief come in here, because I think with the expenditure of that amount, that there will be some questions. I would hope there would be some questions that I think we need to have answered by the chief. So, beginning of next week, we're gonna have to have a meeting to get school, police in here and youth, and maybe after Phil's talking, maybe we have the schools back in here, who knows? With that being said, I'd like to address the police budget next week.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack, very much. All right, the big one. What do you got, Phil?
I got about 48 million.
That's it?
Okay, so we will start with,
Do you want to hand that out, or do you want to save it?
let me just go through this a little bit,
Yep,
Chris. and
that's
we-
fine, I'm just trying to.
You know, I am not the chairman of the subcommittee. Mike Schiavi is, and Mike's on vacation, so, but I'd like to go through this, and there may be questions. So if we have to have, have Mike in the school come in next week, we do that, okay? But I think it's important, it's such a big budget, that we should talk about it a little bit, okay? So we've had 3 meetings, with the school committee, and we started probably 2 months ago. The subcommittee is comprised of Jeff, Joyce, and Mike, okay? Where we're at, and I am gonna pass this out, okay? This is my little,
And it's a great aid, that's why, when I was
Yeah.
looking at it, I think you did a great job
so,
lining things out.
yeah, that goes that way. I think there's. No.
Okay.
Here you go. Extra, there you go. Hope you didn't take the, where's my pencil? Okay, so let's walk through this a little bit as soon as everyone gets one, okay? You all set?
Yep, we're good.
All right, and I think the school really did a very good job of putting together their budget. What they did, they went school by school, okay? And then they had an initiative section to their budget, and they ranked their initiatives by tier 1 and tier 2, okay? And so, with that said, last year's budget was some 46,102,000, and that's on the right-hand side. The level service increase nets to some 1.3 million. And we can talk about that a little bit, because I think my colleague from Holy Cross will ask me some questions about that. And then we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 initiatives. Tier 1 was 562,000, Tier 2 was 416,000, okay? What I'd like to go is explain the level funding, and what is that? It is principally, and we can get more detail, and please, anyone on the subcommittee wants to join in, please do. That is principally contractual increases. Now, the school, its contract is up June 30th. I understand that they've agreed, with the union as to the amount. It hasn't been ratified, okay? So the new contract is in this budget, and again, the net 1.3 of contractual, which is the 1,424 less the 100,800, is principally contractual increases. If people want more detail, we can. There's not a lot on the expense side. It's contractual plus other districts, okay? Those are the two biggest items there, okay? We've taken the approach as a subcommittee. We said, hey, we'll give you Tier 1. We'll give you the level. We'll give you Tier 1, which is, 562,000. And then we said, hey, you're not going to, we can't afford to do Tier 2. And then we kind of went back and forth on that, and we've decided of the Tier 2 to give them 116,900 of Tier 2, and they would reduce their budget by 250,000. So if you look at my sheet, it started out at 48,406 less the 250, so it's 48,156. If you look to the left, the last year's budget was 46,102,800. There's an increase of $2 million for 4.45%, and that is the increase in their budget. If you, and again, we didn't get into all the details as to what is Tier 1, what is Tier 2. We said, okay, we'll accept your Tier 1, and we kind of negotiated the Tier 2. If you look at the budget as to how we have done it in the past we've looked at level service, and we looked at ELL and special education. If you look down on the right, you'll see that if we went with our format in the past, the level service and ELL, it would come to 199, a 4.32% increase. So that methodology as compared to where they are today is some $60,000 difference. So that's where we are with their budget. And I think that they I thought they did a really good job putting it together. My point about budgets, and I'll make this a point for the school budget, and I'll make this point for all the budgets that we looked at this evening. It seems like we're getting started very late in the budget process, and I think that we have to start as a committee, this is my swan song, I guess, that we have to start earlier in the process, because a lot of questions are coming up late, and I think you need to have, an understanding of the budget in the department. And if you start the process sooner, you don't come down trying to make major decisions very quickly, so. Anyone like to add anything to that?
Who's first?
Yeah.
Uncle Phil, with all due respect, this word level services
Just,
got us into trouble many years ago, because all of a sudden, everything got thrown in and we were negotiating off of.
yeah, I see that. I mean, I think level service, I have a schedule, it's 1.3 million, level service. Of that, I don't have it in terms of what is, I think most of it is contractual, it's 945,000. So I would ask you, and maybe we get more detail as to the definition of what's in level service, because we did go through it with them. I mean, we all did as a subcommittee.
No,
But I
I'm
think.
objecting to the whole premise of we start with
but-
level services.
But I'm gonna redo this schedule, and I'm gonna change that word, and rather than have it level service, we're gonna call it contractual, because that's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, it is mostly contractual, if not all contractual.
And again, mostly, if you came back and said, we've always funded increases in contract negotiations the first year. What worries me is when we say level services and you start throwing in other stuff, it gets me nervous, because that's where the budget years ago exploded.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense, I mean, again, I have the schedule, I'd certainly be willing to share it. Most, if not all, is contractual. I don't know if Jeff, I don't know if you have a sense looking at this, want to refresh, remember we looked at this? It was like a month ago, I can't.
But Phil, we don't need an answer tonight.
No, but I think your point is valid. I mean, you use the level service and you can layer things from year to year, and that just kind of creeps and creeps and creeps.
It compounds. It
Right,
just compounds.
so I get that, but, you know,
Number two,
because they have obviously they have a contractual increase somewhere, okay?
I'm
And-
concerned over the whole sped ELL. You know, for years, we say we think we're gonna need about 800,000. One of the things I'd love to see is, okay, last year we increased 600,000. Did we spend 600 more than the year before? Now, if we spent 650 more, I think we owe the school 50 grand. But if we only spent 550, then
Yeah.
it comes back.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had asked, could you give us a listing of what was spent, why? Because, you know, my colleague to the left said he thought social workers were being thrown into sped.
No,
That-
it's right here. It's, you can look on the left column, first thing under special education, social worker, Brookside Memorial Woodland.
Okay. So, you know, again, just curiosity, is that mandated? You know, I don't know what that means.
You know, we asked the same question in terms of the definition of ELL and special education, and the response to that was it's mandated. In terms of what's left over from their prior budget, I don't see anything being left over, okay? But-
Can I, just because it's getting
It's
late,
getting
and we
late.
know schools are coming back.
Okay.
I mean, can you guys do me a favor? Any questions that you guys have on the schools that you want answered, after looking at this page, can we direct them to you? Do you want to direct them to me? I don't care.
You can, I don't care.
Direct them to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
All right, so send me all your questions for schools. I'll pass that along to them so that they can come in prepared to answer the questions we have. Because I know we can debate about schools, and I know there's a lot of things, but the point is, if we're gonna have them come back next week anyway, I would rather have you ask them the question than to have the question asked and have dead air because no one can answer the question. Okay?
And we may owe them money, because it's, but I just want to get
Oh,
it
no,
fair as fair.
I totally, everyone's arguments at this table are great, and I think there's a lot of questions. We'll have them in next week. So with that,
Do you know when we're gonna meet, Mr. Chairman?
that's what was my next point. At this point, we needed to get this done for Friday in order to be able to get into the mailing with the rest of the town things. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We could mail out our mailing without Article 4, which I think is a disservice because basically that is.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. So I would prefer that we just mail out our own mailing, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think, okay. So next week,
Wednesday again?
I can't, I can't.
May 16th?
The only night I got next week is Wednesday.
When is the town meeting?
the 14th, you can't do anything next week?
Can't do Wednesday. I have employee service awards on Wednesday night. So it's gonna-
It's May 16th.
Well, I don't, actually, you know what? I'm gonna check to see what the school's availability is and what the police chief's availability is. Because without them, actually, it doesn't matter if I'm here. If the police chief's not here to answer the question.
Wednesday or Friday?
Can I email you guys? I'm gonna check the police chief's schedule, because I don't wanna set this up and then find out the police chief is busy that night.
Yeah.
Because what was the point of doing it?
And same with school.
And the same thing with school. So if that's okay with you guys, I will reach out to the school committee and I'll reach out to the police chief, check on their ability for next week. Whatever we can get out for turnout certainly would be great, but we'll work with what we got.
Is there any chance we could do Saturday morning? Do we have enough time? Do we have to, what do you need, 48 hours?
I would need to post tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
So post it.
I'll post.
This Saturday's Milford cleanup day.
Okay.
Yeah, but
You're
we can
talking
just
next
take an hour.
Saturday.
Oh, next
Or-
Saturday.
We're starting to get close to town meeting. I want to be able to get this done.
Saturday's gonna be too late.
Yeah, we need to do it next week, so we can get the letter out.
Can
All
we
right,
do it
so-
this Saturday? Is everybody available?
I need to check with the
I
police
love
chief and the
Saturday
school
mornings.
committee.
It's beautification day in the morning.
I know.
It's 9 to 1, it's beautification day. Town
Maybe
line.
we can do it in the afternoon. Can I just, I'll email you guys, I will email the police chief and Kevin is the second we walk out this door and find out what their schedule is, and I will touch base with you guys, if not tonight, first thing tomorrow morning. okay?
Okay, good.
And I'll do my
Okay.
best to find a time.
Yep.
And I want to thank all of you guys. I mean, this was a long night, and I know the Bruins were on, so.
Did they lose
I know.
in the second?
Oh, end of the second?
All right, shh. With that being said, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Motion by Mike, second by Vin. Oh, last note. Welcome back, Vin.
Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Yay, Vin.
Couple
Hey,
years.
how long's it been?
Been a couple years.
A couple of years.